What's up, and welcome back to the Section 10 podcast, episode 512, presented by Underdog Fantasy. It is the home of your 81-81 third place Boston Red Sox. My name is Jared Carabas, and I am a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is Coley Mick, and he's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is Tyler Milliken, and he killed his dog bullet, and you can't teach that. Bada boom. Realest guys in the room. Steve, how you doing?
What up, Section 10 in the building?
In the mother fucking building. Presented by Blue Moon.
Suck one.
Suck one. Produced by Jake Yazzie.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, Jake. Fuck yeah, Jake. And you know what? It's fuck yeah, Jake, and it's fuck you, Tyler. Because
Whoa.
Yep.
Me?
Let me explain why.
Maybe I don't want you to explain.
No, I'm about to, so I don't care. I'm about to explain why. By the way, Colin Barnicle on the podcast today. Very excited about that. Director of the 2004 Netflix doc that is out today. Check it out. It's awesome. Get Netflix. If you've never heard of it, it's a streaming service.
07 Red Sox legend. He's an 07 Red Sox legend.
Yes, he is. Yes, he's a clubby. We'll get to that interview in just a second. But first, October baseball is when legends are made. Begin your road to greatness on Underdog, where you can make picks on all your favorite player stats. All you have to do is choose higher or lower on things like strikeouts, total bases, and home runs. You can win up to 1,000 times your money playing their pick'em game. Sign up for Underdog using promo code Jared. That's Jared. And you'll get a free pick as part of your first cash entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Again, that's promo code Jared, Jared. Cash in on every home run during the playoffs with Underdog. The reason why it's fuck yeah, Jake, and fuck you, Tyler, is because there is a Red Sox personality Twitter tournament going on right now. As there was, this is the third annual. I won the first two and then retired. I was like, let everyone else play. Like, I'm just, I don't need to be a part of this. We get it. I'm the fucking GOAT. We get it. But now I want Jake to win. It's not your year, Tyler. We already had this discussion.
I know, and I didn't agree with it at the time, but it was forced upon me. There was no one here to even argue the cause.
Did Jake win the Rookie of the Year? Or did you win the Rookie of the Year?
That was bullshit, and it wasn't left up to the public. You made that decision. Yes.
Okay. Well, do I? Whoa. No. This was voted upon.
I didn't hear this. Coley, you voted?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you ever hesitate? Were you like, maybe Tyler, like, oh, this is really close?
No, never. Because you're also like, this is where me and you differ a million reasons, but also here. I'm also still in the tournament. I lost to Jared in the finals last year. I don't give a fuck. This is Jake's tournament to win. Whatever we faced.
Yeah, can I add something?
No.
Let's all turn to Jake for being a dick and putting Section 10 Rookie of the Year in his username.
That's crazy. Jake's not a dick.
It's also not his username. It's his display name. You fucking idiot.
Yeah. So here's what's going on right now. Is Jake's matchup is Alex Spear, who we love. We love Alex Spear. He's been in the game for quite some time. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He's actually very funny. He doesn't really lend himself to the humor route for his content, but if you ever get the chance to talk to him in real life, he's very funny.
From Dedham.
But he hosts a podcast that Tyler loves, which is a competitor of ours. So when I stumbled upon the voting totals, it was 50-50. And then I just fucking Thanos'd his ass. And it is 80-20 in favor of Jake right now. And I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of the way. If I need to. I'm not going to, if Jake's beating someone 60-40. No, Tyler. If Jake's beating someone 60-40, I don't need to make it 90-10. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just rub everyone's face and shit. But if I have to, I will. So congrats to Jake. Moving on.
Jake, do you want to win like this?
No, I mean, I have a ton of respect for Alex Spear. He's obviously a huge Red Sox personality, but looks like a kind of a blowout early.
Spears dedicated his life.
I like Jared's explanation that he's only going to use his weapon when he needs to.
Yeah.
I think we'll let it see how it plays out, but having that in my back pocket obviously doesn't hurt.
Yeah, that must feel good. Yeah, the tribal chief is selecting the next heir, the island of relevancy, as Roman would call it. Yeah, just winning the tournament every year and then getting to hand pick the next winner. It's just fucking good to be me. Tyler, it's fucking good to be me, because you know what that means?
What?
You're never gonna win.
You said I could win next year. You said next year I was winning.
Yeah, you're never gonna win.
2025 is the year of Milliken.
Nope. What if Jake wants to win next year?
Jake doesn't want to win. He doesn't look like he wants to win. And Coley's too good to win.
Back to back. That'd be nice. That'd be nice to keep it going. Yeah, to be like, hey, I started off back to back champ, and then what if I'm like, hey, I want Jake to be the next to go back to back? Then we'll do that next year. I don't know. Coley?
Tyler, who do you think went to more Red Sox games this year? You or Jake?
Ooh, great question,
I'd
Coley.
argue that Jake did attend in person more games.
Mm-hmm.
But if I may raise a question.
Are you trying to say you watched more games than him? Because you're the one that went to a fucking Rihanna concert in the middle of the season.
Get some respect. It's Nicki Minaj, first of all. Secondly,
I mean,
I watch every spring training game. Does that not get some points?
No, that makes you a loser.
No, that makes me cool as fuck.
Yeah, loser.
No, put the L down. We're not doing that.
Yeah, there's college baseball on, brother.
Fuck that. I'm trying to watch some prospects.
Yeah, there's no chance I'm watching spring training ball. Never.
I'll take all pity votes. If you are listening right now, drop them. I'll take them.
I mean, you're gonna do well. Like, you're gonna get pretty far on your own without my help. But
oh yeah, I mean, you're winning your matchup handedly. The only person who isn't currently is the second best per all.
Ooh,
he's winning, but it's not a blowout by any means.
Well, in fairness, I think his opponent is campaigning while Steve did the whole, like, I'm not campaigning, but I'm gonna retweet it so that people notice it. Like, he's doing campaigning. Like, I don't even care about this. Don't vote for me. Yeah, he's doing one of those, but I think he very much cares about winning. Yeah, I don't know. Like, at what point who are you up against, Coley?
Mm.
What do you mean you don't know? You know. Don't do that.
I genuinely don't know. I don't think I've had my match yet. I genuinely, hand to God, don't know.
All right. I didn't know. I saw Steve's poll. I saw Jake's. Tyler, who are you against right now?
I'm facing Gordo.
What's the percentages at?
90-10.
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, see, you don't need me, T-Dog. You don't need me.
Last year, did you eliminate me last year? I'm pretty sure.
Probably. I don't know.
I think Stats got me the first year. Yeah,
I wish I got you both years.
Why? Why would you want to kill me? I'm like your child.
I know, but it's
you're like trying to drown your son. Why do you want to see me struggle? Don't you want to see me float?
No, that's how I teach you how to swim.
Put the floaties on me.
In many cultures, they will just throw the baby into the pool. And it's like, all right, that's how you learn how to swim, because you don't have a fucking choice but to swim.
Shout out to my mom who, I was a late swimmer. I didn't really start to get it down until 7th or 8th grade, how to work in water. And I almost drowned at the pool at the Cove. It's a hotel. And she jumped in full outfit and pulled me out and saved me, because I didn't know the difference between the deep end and the shallow end after we had rescued a dog. And then they came and took the dog. I thought the dog was going to be mine.
Rescued the dog from you?
Yeah, I had saved the dog.
No, you didn't.
The dog was like roaming and I grabbed it, and I thought since I found it without the owner, it belonged to me.
So you stole a dog?
I tried, and then they took it back with rage.
Yeah, well.
So you stole a dog, tried to drown it in the deep end of a winter pool, and you were curious why everyone was mad at you.
Some would tell the story like that.
Interesting.
Including the family.
All right. Just trying to flesh out the facts here.
Do you see the video of that dog I posted the other day getting carried through the airport by his neck?
No, I don't follow you.
No,
incredible content. Jake, you saw it?
No, I just don't like how you're smiling the way you said it.
It was so funny. It was very cute. I didn't know you could grab them by their neck fat like that and just bring them around.
Yeah, you can. That's how I believe. Never mind. Are you coming to this stream on Friday, T-Dog?
I'm not sure. It's up in the air. So tonight was a big moving day that I had to unfortunately push to the side because we were recording. So I got to make up for it because we're supposed to be out of the house in 10 days.
There's one thing about T-Dog is he will move just about anything for this show, and that's why I love him.
Listen,
like there
if
have
my
been
mom
some
and
things
sister-
where I'm like, Tyler, don't move that for this. Multiple times I've had to be like, don't move that for this, and he will anyway. You never ask him to, but there's no one more dedicated. I mean, Steve's not even here. He left.
I think if Tyler were dying of a heart attack and like the doctor's like, there's nothing we can do. If Jared said it's time to record, as long as you never stopped recording, he wouldn't die.
Yeah.
I would like to
just
go
be
out
like,
like
yo,
that.
give me the mic, bro.
Let me cook real quick.
Yeah. Let me talk about FIP and K9 real quick.
Yeah, I just want to make sure all my stuff in here doesn't get left behind. That's crucial.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
important.
we're going to try to do that.
Don't worry about it. Hey, what do I tell you? There's more important things in life, T-Dog.
Maybe.
No,
We'll see
there
about
is.
Friday.
We'll see.
There's also
We're getting Papagenos?
Yes.
and it came up during the interview, and it felt rude to interject. But there's a part where we talk about 03-04 Pedro. 04 Pedro was just a mortal human being pitcher.
He was
No
a 3.90 ERA.
Yeah. So he was still fine. You know what I mean? He was
03,
32.
he was like what, third in Cy Young, fourth?
He was fourth in Cy Young with a 3.90 ERA. That was very much like, it's Pedro. You got to have him up there.
What was 03?
The FIP was a 3.5.
03, he led the league in ERA and winning percentage. I know that doesn't mean much, but he led the league in ERA with a 2.22. His FIP was 2.21, Tyler. They matched. Dead even.
That's
he led the league
art.
in K per 9. He was at 10, still at 10 punch outs. That was 03 Pedro. 03 Pedro was still very much the best pitcher in the world. Well, there's this thing that happens where Pedro tries to get diminished to 2 years, 99 and 2000, and I'll never let that stand.
Well, even if you go to 05, like you posted 2.80 ERA and 31
yeah.
starts. Like,
I mean, 02, he should have won the Cy Young again.
Correct. Yeah, led ERA later back-to-back years after 01, where he only made 18 starts because he got hurt.
He had one of the best 7-year peaks in the history of baseball.
Correct. Yeah, it is truly 7 years minimum if you want to talk Pedro's
Go
peak.
back to the
Now,
Expos, yeah.
the apex is those 2 years, obviously, which it's like him, Bob Gibson. That's kind of it. Like, Satchel Paige, from what we know, but you can't point to any numbers there. Those 2 years, yeah, that's a different conversation. But too often I hear his peak, and that's not what happened during the interview. Just 03 and 04 got lumped together, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. I don't think it's fair that we've kept the audience waiting for this interview this long.
That's right.
Because it's a great interview. It's a great trip down memory lane. So without further ado, Colin Barnacle. All right, so we are here now with Colin Barnacle, who is the director of the new... I know people get confused now because there's a lot of Red Sox Netflix stuff happening. This is the Comeback 2004 Boston Red Sox. It drops if you're listening to this on Wednesday. Guess what? It's out today. If you're listening in the future, then it's been out, and I don't know why you haven't seen it yet. I'm not even going to open this up with a question. I'm going to open this up with a statement. I, unlike Tyler, lived 2004. Sorry. I lived it. And game by game, I was at game 4 of the 2004 ALCS. I remember in 2005, 2006, like I skipped going to New Year's Eve parties. I stayed home by myself and I would watch the 2004 World Series film. I've seen every documentary, every film made about 2004, 4 Nights in October, even like the specials that have come out. I have seen them all. This one is the best for a multitude. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. This is the best one that I have seen for a multitude of reasons. And I will start with the fact that you give it full context. You can't tell, like, how many of these 2004 documentaries, short films, movies have come out and it spawns in the ALCS and then it barely even talks about the World Series. Like this, you cannot tell the story of the comeback against the Yankees, the 2004 World Series, without going back to provide the context of how the 2004 team came to be. Like, you go back and tell the full story and set the scene before you even enter into 2004. There's a bunch of reasons, we can get into all of them, but I did just want to start this by saying that as far as documentaries, short films, movies go, in regards to the 2004 Boston Red Sox, this is by far the best one that I've ever seen.
We love that. That podcast's over. That's perfect.
All right, that'll do it.
That's amazing. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the whole like you were just talking about being at the games. I was at Game 7, 2003 when we lost in Yankee Stadium. It was the first game I had gone to, regular season or postseason game outside Fenway.
Yeah,
like my dad brought me there. He was like, "This is it. We're gonna beat them. This is the time period." And he brought it was me and my little brother, Tim. My older brother, Nick, who I worked on this with, was in college. He was too cool to come. So we went and we're all decked out in Sox gear, like 56,000 fans surrounding us. We're getting heckled, but we're winning. And then when we lost, my dad, literally, he looked down at my little brother and he was like, "I cannot believe I did this to you." Like, he can't believe he had given, like, cause he'll never forgive like Bill Spaceman Lee for giving up a home run to Tony Perez in 1975. Like, he'll never forget, like, he was at the Bucky Dent game. He went to New York when I was like 6 months old to go see the Game 6 against the Mets. Like, he was at all these games. He's missing a large chunk of our life, but just being at Fenway Park. And like, we went down there, it was devastating. So when we started the whole thing, I was like, where did this all start? Like, I get, like, the ending is them coming back from 3-0, but I was like, let's find the ignition point here. Like, where did this start for? I mean, you guys know, you interviewed.
Sounds like it started with Mr. Barnacle. Like, what? This guy
Started way back when.
We started to tell him like maybe you're the problem, dude. Like, you're at all these games that they're blowing. He was like, "I know," but I remember we went back to the hotel that night, and I was like sleeping on the couch kind of like intermittently. And I remember we got in the hotel. My dad was standing at the window and we got back in. It was like, 2 a.m. by the time, and we had like a 7 a.m. train back. And when I woke up, he was still standing at the window looking out. And I was like, "Did you sleep?" He was like, "No, how could you?" And I felt bad for like sleeping. I was like, "Oh yeah." But it was, you're at all these games and it was just like, I just like the whole thing doesn't start Game 4 of the ALCS 2004. It starts
no. And 4 nights in October is like just about the ALCS. And if you're going to tell the whole story, it's like you've got to go back to the early 1900s really to tell the whole story. But you guys did an awesome job talking about how the 04 team came to be, giving context. Like, I think why it's so great is because I'm a diehard fan who has seen every, like, not just about 04, but just every film or documentary about the Red Sox. I've seen it. So you've basically catered to the diehard audience. Like, there was some stuff in there that I hadn't seen or stories that I haven't heard before, but you also give the context to, say, if someone isn't even a Red Sox fan and they just stumbled across this, then they have the entire story and they can follow along. Like, you don't have to be a diehard fan to kind of pick it up and be like, oh, this is interesting shit. Like, I had no idea about X, Y, and Z, and you can follow along and not get lost in it, even if you're not a Red Sox fan. So that's why, like, it must have been very difficult to be able to cater to both audiences, especially for Netflix.
It was, yeah, we basically, our target audience was like my dad, who's a diehard, and then my mom, my mom who goes to games, and she's like, why is that guy on second base? I'm like, he hit a double, and then like you round first and you're on second. When we showed it to my parents, we showed like a first iteration in the middle of September to my dad and my mom, and like I look over at my dad during the second episode, and he's got his iPhone and he's watching the actual Sox game, and I was like, what are you doing, dude? They're like, it was the game that they lost that White Sox game on a Sunday, and my dad's like sitting there watching the thing, and he's like yelling at his little phone while we're screening it. And I looked over, I was like, what's wrong with this? And he's watching moves to the White Sox, and he's like, oh my God, 10% of the White Sox wins this year are against the Red Sox. This is pathetic.
It's facts.
For you, because for anyone that doesn't know, you were a clubby for the Red Sox in 2006 and 2007. The
way it happened was I got an internship in 2005, and they made me a front office intern, and I was fucking awful at it. I was just terrible. I couldn't run the phones. One day they moved me down to the mailroom, and I had to send a scouting report. We were playing the Marlins. I remember exactly when it was. It was August 05. And I was supposed to send the scouting reports down in Florida, and I forgot, and they got swept. And they're like, you are not cut out for baseball operations.
We keep grooving fastballs too. I could have used this information.
Oh my God. It was awful. They made me measure my last job in the front office as an intern. They made me measure they had nothing else for me to do. I was so bad at everything. They made me measure the width of every seat in the stadium in the park.
What?
That's just a punishment.
Yeah, they were like changing out the seating bowl to try to get, they just started concerts. I mean, that's what they told me, but it was basically like, we hired an intern who is this bad at it. Just go measure the seats. And then after that, they were like, do you want to just go down to the clubhouse? And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had you measure 37,000 seats. Like, all right, that'll take up enough time. That'll kill enough time here.
It's like 18 and a half. Like all the blue seats are 17 and a half inches wide. And then all the red seats are 19 inches wide. And there used to be what they called the double wide seat, which was 20. It's gone now. It was 23 inches. It was on section 21. And how else would you get
this info if you didn't measure it? You wouldn't have known that. So
I didn't know that.
Big deal. Horrifying. Yeah. And I was like, it's a midday. It's like in the middle of the summer. And I'm like, I'm basically transparent. Like, so I just was burning out there. They're like, throw on some sunblock, dude.
That's crazy. I mean, the fact that like, how old were you when you were doing this?
I was 2005. I was like 19. It was like a summer internship, and then, when I was 20 and 21, I went down to the clubhouse, which was like totally wild. It was awesome. It was awesome because we won in 07.
You were born in 86? Were you born in 86?
I was born in 86. I was born Buckner year, as my dad says.
Yeah. So you graduated high school in 04 then, right?
I graduated high school 04, and then I went to Holy Cross for 2 years, and then my brother was at Georgetown living in a townhouse, and I was living in a rented apartment above a Wendy's in Worcester. And
that's like, Tyler's dream.
I was about to say.
And I was like, you know what?
Poor baby, come on.
As it turns out, it's really easy to transfer into a nice school. So that's what I did. I went down there.
That's smart. That's very smart.
Dude, I remember the real pressure for me was having worked in the clubhouse 06, 07. Like I knew Wake. And I just didn't want to, like when we started the process, he had just passed.
Yeah.
And we were like talking to the guys during that period, like Timlin, Kevin Millar, all those guys, Uke. I was just like, I cannot screw this up for these guys,
Right.
And I think when he passed, like everybody, like Derek Lowe moved up to Hingham, like next to Varitek to like be near Wake's family. So like I knew like we had to deliver for those guys. And I felt like when he passed, like a lot of the guys, like the 03-04 season specifically, became a lot more present in their minds. So it was like a lot easier to kind of like dig into it.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, how as I was watching, I wasn't sure for the interviews or just like the entire production, was it pre or post Tim's passing?
It was post. Yeah.
Yeah. So like so this made me cry twice, and I don't cry about anything, like nothing. But there's a line that Varitek has that is going to absolutely crush your soul. Like he says something in this doc talking about Tim that if you don't cry, you have no soul, you're not human. And then around that, they kind of get to the like final out of 04 not long after that. So you're kind of already in your feels because of Varitek. And then you get to the final out of the World Series and you're like, well, I'm already a mess, so I might as well cry about the final out too. So it actually got me twice, like in those two moments. Yeah.
Yeah. Wake was great. We used to call him the Heavy. He was called the Heavy in the clubhouse because he was like
the head honcho.
The old cowboy guy who comes in and he's like the guy who polices everything. And I remember the first week I worked in the clubhouse. You're supposed to wear khakis, and I wore jeans. I wore jeans into the clubhouse. You're not supposed to. And at the end of the day, I went back to put my jeans on, and he had cut them into jorts, like jean shorts, and I had to. I was going to pick up my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I was going to pick her up outside the baseball tavern. So I had to show up at like everybody. It was like 1 a.m. Everybody's coming out, and I'm standing there in like tight jorts trying to pick up a girl, and everybody was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "This wasn't my style choice." So
not what it looks like.
Yeah, it was great.
Was that real quick on the tavern? Just because anytime someone mentions baseball tavern, we have to ask a follow-up. I think it's an obligation on Section 10. Yeah. Was it specific that bar they were talking about was tavern, or was that cask? Do you know?
No, that was the baseball tavern. They wanted to do it. That's right. Yeah. They wanted
to make sure, because it wasn't like doubled down as like confirmed or anything. I'm like, all right, just making sure that was tavern.
No, because you used to be able to run out of the clubhouse, and then there's that like, it's nice now, but it was kind of like a crappy motel there for a little bit, and then you go by the CVS, and there was
a Hojo's. It was a Hojo's.
It was a Hojo's, and there used to be a little Chinese restaurant there when I was like a really crappy one, and for whatever reason, like all the guys loved the Chinese food from in there, so we used to go over to the Hojo's and pick up like Julian Tavares's like chicken and dumplings.
Of course it was Tavares. That makes sense.
He's a weird guy.
Very weird guy. Like, just recently met him like a year or two ago, and I think we were shooting something with Bronson Arroyo, and Bronson Arroyo had a concert that we were filming, and out of nowhere, I don't even think Arroyo knew he was coming. Julian Tavares just walks in the fucking place. And no one recognized him. But I was like, is that fucking Julian Tavares? Like, of all the people that show up to this concert, he walks in, and because I was standing next to Bronson, he was like, my friend. He's like, take my number. And I was like, okay. Like, we didn't even say hi. Like, he started the conversation with that. Very, very bizarre individual. But as the diehard Red Sox fan that you are, and the diehard Red Sox family that you grew up in, was there anything in the process of doing all these interviews that you learned that you didn't previously know?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's specific things like the whole microphone in Yankee Stadium thing. But,
I had heard about it, but I had never heard them speak on it.
Yeah, that came from that. Actually, the first guy who really spoke on it was like D'Lo kind of did, and then Arroyo did. And I love Arroyo in the doc because every time he's in it, he's shocked to be pitching. And like every time he's like, and I'm out there on the mound, and it's like, and his hair is like, he looks like he just like got out of the biodome, and he's like sitting there like, yeah, I'm just shocked to be here. And they're mentioning it. And I'm like, what is this? And then so I called Maribel, and he was like, yeah, no, we opened the ceiling panel and it was there. And we interviewed Schilling, and Schilling was like, no, I did it. And then Pedro was like, no, Schilling didn't do it. Like, it was Maribelli. And it was, he was like, yeah, it was a real thing. And they had to go do the pitching meetings out they walked out of the clubhouse, and they did it on the team bus in the parking lot, the pitching meetings. Wow. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, I gave credence to it until like, game 3 at home, when you give up 19 runs, like obviously you didn't bug your own clubhouse to send the relays there. Right. So I kind of got tanked the next game, but yeah, that was weird. And then just the self-doubt a lot of these people had, like in making it, like Theo particularly was, I mean, John Henry paid $750 million, and he hired a guy who's 28, who literally lived on Peterborough Street, like down, like with 3 other guys. He was like rooming with 3 other guys, and he gets like maybe the hardest and most glorified job in Boston at the time. So I don't think he was uber confident on that one. And then Theo was not uber confident at all in those first like 2 years.
No. And hearing like the telling part about how they wanted Billy Beane, and Billy Beane was like, I'm taking the job. And then they popped champagne. They're like, fuck yeah, we got him. And then Billy Beane was like, actually, I don't want the job. And they're like,
completely forgot I had a daughter. My bad.
Yeah, that's essentially what he said. That's essentially what he said.
Yeah, he was like, I didn't think of my family when I said yes to this.
No wonder my wife hates me. This keeps happening.
Yeah. And then to go from that to, I guess we'll just go with Theo, and then made it clear they didn't pop bottles for him. Did you pop bottles for Theo? And he was like, fuck no.
Yeah.
That was a hard no.
Bean was like, I was like, what did you do for that weekend? He was like, I literally didn't sleep. I was driving around in my truck. I was like dipping. I was delivering mail at like 3 a.m. It was totally weird. He was like, I didn't put 2 and 2. He was on the phone the whole time, that whole weekend with Theo, building the team they wanted, because there needed to be a transaction back to get Bean. And they were going to trade Youkilis. They were going to trade Youkilis over to Oakland. And so Bean said no. And Theo was like, yeah, I was in San Diego for the winter meetings. And he's like putting the team together. And Billy called him, was like, where are you? And he's like, I'm here at the winter meetings. We're going to crush this. And he's like, go into a hallway, get by yourself. And he's like, yeah, what's up, dude? And Bean was like, I am not taking the job, and you should take the job. And Theo was like, yeah, funny. What are you talking about? And he was like, no, I'm out. And Theo was the guy. He was like, imagine how I felt. Theo was the guy tasked with finding the GM, like his replacement. So he had to go then to like John Henry, and Billy had called him and be like, yeah, so I screwed up the search and we don't have a GM now, and it's late November. So they were like, okay, you just do the job then.
Fine.
Yeah.
And Theo was great in this, by the way. Theo, obviously, not like that's super surprising, but he gave you a lot of good stuff. Off of that, real quick, I wanted to ask you, who was the one person that you interviewed in this doc that surprised you the most? Because there was one for me, and it was Grady Little.
Grady.
I think Grady was like the MVP of this thing. He gave he must have had 3 or 4 lines that I was dying at. I'm like, Grady Little, damn. Like, that was hilarious.
Grady, yeah. I was like, when we started, I was like, there's no way Grady's going to do this. And then I called him. He's in North Carolina. I called him. He was like, "Oh yeah, come on down." And
Come on
so
down.
I was like, "All right, let's see how this goes." So we went down there, and like I got like instantly like, cause you just chatting with the dude for like 2 hours before, and then like a couple hours afterwards, just lingering in their house. So Grady was like, "Yeah, like I won 93 games in 2002. I won 95 games in 2003. Like I'm the guy who gave the confidence to Ortiz and Millar and Bill Millar and all these Red Sox icons to like be the players that they became in that season in 04. So I feel like he was like my fingerprints on 04, and they're just getting like nobody acknowledges it. So like I understood that. I also we were doing the interview, and he was like, I'm asking him obviously about Game 7, 2003. And he was like, it's a lot different when you're in Yankee Stadium, and you got to make the decision. It's just different when you're there in Yankee Stadium. And he looks at me and goes, "You don't understand. I mean, where were you?" And I was like, "I was in Yankee Stadium. I was watching you."
Literally,
and
same
he was
place.
like, he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah." So it wasn't great.
I was about 200 feet
surprising
away
to
from
me
your
that-
stupid
that-
ass.
Yeah, every single player. So like Pedro was the last interview we got. It was in late June, so we were kind of building the plane as we were going. So that section was originally covered a lot by like Kevin Millar, Bill Millar, and Jason Varitek talking about, they all come to the mound when Pedro's out there. And I was like, what was being said? And Millar and Varitek and Bill Millar were like, 100% you keep Pedro in, 100%. And I was like, 100%? He'd given up. I was like trying to give him any way out of it. I was like, he had allowed 6 of the last 9 runners on.
Yes.
And they're like, no, 100% you keep him in. And Timlin got the closest. He was like in the bullpen. Like, I have no idea why they're not calling me.
Yes.
Like he had gone, I think it was up until like the game before, he was throwing a perfect game out of the bullpen. He had given up. He had pitched like 9 1/3, no base runners, 9 strikeouts. He was like hot. And I think Embry had gone 10 innings and given up 1 hit. So they were both pitching extremely well. And they were just sitting down there like, what is going on here?
Yeah. Hold that thought, Colin, because I got to talk about HelloFresh and my pal T-Dog right now. You see this guy, he's losing weight. He's looking good. And you know what? A lot of it is because he's eating right. He's getting that diet in check. Make this fall the tastiest season yet with farm fresh produce with easy autumn-inspired recipes delivered right to your door with HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers all the pre-portioned ingredients that you'll need to make easy homemade meals. All the proteins, veggies, sauces, spices, and more arrive in your box, along with simple instructions that walk you through each step of the cooking process. Whip up tasty restaurant-style meals in your own kitchen without the high price tag of takeout and in less time than it takes to get delivery. HelloFresh has tons of options for whatever you're craving. Choose from a changing menu of over 50 recipes each week, plus take your pick of over 100 market add-on items like desserts, breakfast, and snacks. Choose meals that match you and your family's lifestyle with preferences like fit and wholesome, that's Tyler's favorite, quick and easy, that's Coley's favorite, or vegetarian. You'll always find something to love from HelloFresh. From hearty dinners to game day snacks, HelloFresh has a variety of recipes and flavors to perfectly accompany sweater weather. We're looking at you, pumpkin spice. Wow. Love HelloFresh for me personally, as someone who's running around all week working every day during the week, but then on weekends it's like, we got cheer competitions. We're driving to Foxborough, Franklin. We're up in Wilmington, Tewksbury. We don't have time. We don't have time to do the grocery shopping. So that's where HelloFresh comes in. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free section 10. That's 10. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That is 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free section 10. It just came to me another thing about the doc that I loved. So like obviously when a team wins the World Series like 2004, I think the film comes out in like January. So it's a very quick turnaround to kind of just put it all together, direct it, edit it, and do the interviews and all that. But the part about this doc is the Kevin Millar, Nomar Garciaparra thing. So you're not going to get the drama. Like in a World Series film, you're going to get the high points, the adversity, whatever. But like, you're not going to get the dirt and the tea and the drama. So I was trying to like ask like some of like the younger fans, like, do you even remember this? Or do you even know that this happened? And Tyler's shaking his head. No. So
I was legit going to text you, Jared, and be like, was Nomar as uncomfortable as he came off that last 12 months, how it was depicted in the doc? Because I had no idea it was that bad at the time.
It was bad. It was bad. So, I mean, for me, I was a sophomore in high school. I graduated 07. So I was a sophomore in high school for 04. And Nomar was my guy. Like, that's who I grew up with. My first Red Sox game I ever went to was in 97, his rookie year. So like, he was like a god to me. And like, part of me is thinking, shit, if we can get A-Rod, then I mean, like, I just want to win a fucking World Series. So like you were at Game 7 in 2003. I had tickets to Game 1 of the World Series with my dad, and he had never been to a World Series game before. And I remember like saying a prayer back when that was a thing for me. And that's probably like when I stopped being religious, was like, I like this genuine like plea to God, like, hey, just if you don't let the Red Sox win tonight for me, please do it for my dad. The only thing I want to do is go to a World Series game with my dad. And not only did God say no, he said, fuck you and your dad and the Red Sox and everyone that you love. Yeah, it was crazy. So, like the whole Nomar thing, of course I wanted Nomar on the team. But I wanted a World Series so bad, and A-Rod was that dude back then. Like it wasn't how it is now, where he's like the weirdo and like kissing the mirror and the lipstick and all that shit. And pre-PED awareness, at least for the general public. So like, it was very funny watching Kevin Millar remember in real time what he actually said, because I'm sure these 20 years later he probably told himself like how he actually said it, but then being like, no, like you actually said it this way. And he's like, oh, all right, my bad. Like, because I remember that clip. Like, this was before social media, so watching, like, it was Dan Patrick, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and they were just like, who do you want on your team, Nomar or A-Rod? He's like, fucking A-Rod. And like, Nomar is still on the team. The deal's not done. Just a wild thing to say on national TV. And he was just like, yeah, man, like Nomar called me after and he was pissed. It's like, well, yeah, dude, like what? He's like, yeah,
I love how
in
he
spring
acted
training.
Surprised too. I couldn't believe Nomar was upset.
Well, you could tell he told the story differently, like the last 20 years, without a doubt.
Oh, that's what he said. He was like, so when we went down to see him the second time, he was like, I swear to God, he was like, the last 20 years, I have been like, definitely I'm in the right. And he was like, yeah, interesting. We played.
Well, it's also like who's been telling the most stories of this team the last 20 years? It's Kevin Millar.
Yeah.
He'll probably be like checking out groceries. Like, did I also tell you about Game 5?
We were taking the shots at Jack Daniels,
and he's just
you
wouldn't
believe it.
He's been making it up.
Did you ask Nomar? Did you try to get Nomar for this?
Yeah, we tried to get Nomar. He didn't want to be in it. A-Rod didn't want to be in it. Jeter didn't. Like the big three, they just didn't want to be in it. It was a good, and you don't fault anybody for saying no. They don't know who we are, everything like that. But it was a good indication that, like, 20 years on, kind of still like a raw nerve for a lot of
you
these
can tell when
guys.
fucking Jeter and A-Rod. I mean, A-Rod can laugh at himself because he has to. Like, he's trying to do like the PR spin of like, hey, look at my self-awareness, and I can make a joke about myself. But Jeter, anytime 04 comes up, he can't. Jeter cannot hang. He genuinely gets upset about it. The one
Posada
dude,
still talks. He still talks about Like he'll stand an inch from his TV with the stopwatch, timing his pop time for the Dave Roberts
deal. Fastest pop time he had all season.
Oh,
that was the fastest pop time. Yeah.
His eyes like glaze every time he talks about it. He's like, I don't understand. I threw him out. He's just like, he doesn't understand. I did my best. I did my best.
When we went to the 04 reunion 20 years later, like obviously everybody was kind of like having beers and drinking Jack Daniels before we went out. And Manny was running around the room yelling, Dave Roberts was out. We didn't have replay. Dave Roberts was out. We're like, Manny.
Manny, this isn't the vibe right now.
I can't take it back. I'm with Manny. It's fine. Yeah. But one thing I didn't know, because we're talking about the A-Rod deal, you did a tremendous 30 for 30 short, The Deal, talking about the A-Rod trade and how like very finalized it was. Like that was Kevin Millar wasn't wrong. Like that was a done deal.
Yeah. I think the difference was finally like the Red Sox would have had to pay $12.5 million total to get the best player in baseball. And Larry Lucchino, who was like a good family friend of ours, mostly because I didn't really have to work for him. He was just like, he hated Gene Orza so much at the Players Association. He was like, on principle, I'm just going to say, fuck no. And he said no. And it literally, I think it was like Christmas Day that it was like, he said no. And then like everybody, I remember waking up on Christmas and my dad had the newspaper and he was like, check this shit out. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And then it was like a month later, he's going to the Yankees. And it was just like,
I think it was Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the day up, like the buses were loading. It was like the day the Red Sox pack up to go down to spring training. And it was like truck day.
Yeah. And it was,
that was it. And that was it. But most of episode 2 is like kind of like almost like Temple of Doom. It's like the dark side of like what happened. And, you know, becoming, it was almost like the front office, Theo and John Henry and Tom Werner and Larry, they decided to go like toe for toe financially with the Yankees. But like in doing it, they stepped on the culture they had made in 03. Like that good clubhouse culture. And it got really screwy for a couple months there.
I'm going to ask you, and this is just your opinion, because I know my answer. In all of your interviews, who looked the coolest?
Who looked the coolest? Jed Hoyer came in with like his week. I was like, Jed, you put your movie voice on for this. He's like,
there's one answer. There's what? Gary Sheffield.
Oh my God! He walked in.
Chef fucking sits down. He's got the sunglasses on. He's smoking a cigar. He's like, yeah, I don't care. I did my job. Those fucking bums. they got reverse swept. Not Gary. Gary didn't. Nope.
He walked in with the shades on and we were like, hey, Gary, because of the lighting, can you take the shades off? And he sat down and he's like, absolutely not. Let's go. And I was like, all right, this guy's a dude. Like, and Millar loves Sheffield. Like the whole wiggle that Millar has, he got that from Sheffield. He just copied Sheffield when he was at the Marlins. He was like, he was my guy. And then Millar tells an incredible, we were just shooting the shit. And he was like, yeah, when I first got up to the Marlins, we had a road trip over to California and I wanted to take the guys out to my mom's house to have a barbecue. So it was like, I rented this limo and Sheffield, I get him and I'm like, oh my God, Gary Sheffield is going to be in my house. And Chef's got like, you know, his ice earrings and like his like all this, he's bedazzled and he's like, can I leave it in the limo? It would be safe. And he's like, it's totally fine. It's totally safe. And they're doing the cookout and they start to smell something and they look over and the limo is completely on fire. Like it blew up. And Millar was like, I'm 3 weeks into my career with the Marlins and I've just destroyed all of Gary Sheffield's personal belongings in a budget limo that I rented. He was like, not a great start. Not the best start.
Yeah. I think it was Grady Little that you talked about, how he mentioned he has his fingerprints on the 04 team.
Yeah.
There's another individual that will tell you he has his fingerprints all over the 04 team. How much consideration, or did you try to get Dan Duquette as an interview?
Yeah.
Because he has stories for days.
Yeah. I know, like, I think that's like kind of like almost like a third rail sometimes with Theo, but it was like we reached out to Dan, but it wasn't like, it was like late in the process, and we're like, okay, we're just like, it was the same thing as like, it was either we were gonna like have time to have like Theo and Jed or Dan, and we were like, we couldn't get the schedule right. So, but he's like right, like he drafted.
Oh yeah,
like Euclid, like he's the guy who he
traded for Pedro twice.
Yeah,
Damon he signed, Manny he signed. He drafted Nomar.
Yeah, he got Varitek. He got D'Lo. He got Johnny Damon. That was like one of his last things that he did, signed Johnny Damon. So
did he draft Nixon too?
Yeah, he drafted Nixon.
Yeah,
he drafted Nixon in like 93, or it might have been like he just got the job, and like Lou Gorman was, I think, the GM before him, and I think Duquette, but I think Duquette drafted Nixon. But yeah, like all those guys were his guys. He might have even. Theo will kill me if I get this wrong, but he might have drafted John Lester. I'm not sure, but
that was the.
That was 04, wasn't it?
No, it was 02. John Lester was the 02. First draft pick of the
02. Okay,
new Red Sox ownership.
Yeah,
that was their first pick.
And they were like, one of the reasons Theo got the job was because of that draft, because it used to be you just like went in and you're like, okay, this guy hit well in college or pitched well in college. And Theo was like pissed off during that whole draft. He was like, there's got to be more data on this. So he sent Jed Hoyer, and Jed was like, I was the assistant GM. And we were like, no, it says assistant to the GM. You were his personal assistant. He was like, all right, I was his personal assistant. But Jed went down. Like he was like, I went to every college, and just like they didn't have anything. I would go back and like look through stacks and stacks of their sheets, and then of their game sheets, and then fax them over and fax like who he was facing and everything like that, just to get a little bit more data. And like John Henry and Larry Lucchino saw what Theo was doing, like digging in. They're like, okay. Like, and they knew him before. He was at San Diego when Larry was at San Diego. So they knew who he was and like how good he was. But that was like a big thing at 2002 drafts.
I think that there's a story somewhere, and I know I'm not getting it perfectly right, but it's the gist of it, where when the Red Sox traded for Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe, that they thought like Derek Lowe was like a knuckleball pitcher and like
they thought he was a lefty.
Yeah, he thought he was like left-handed.
He was a lefty.
Yeah, they thought like Varitek was like something else too. Like they had no idea. Like you can't like, it's like, oh, what's the greatest trade in Red Sox history? It's like, oh, obviously like Heathcliff Slocum for Varitek and D'Lo. It's like, well, don't give them too much credit. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing when they made that trade.
D'Lo was telling us, he was like, yeah, we were in Tacoma. They were playing for like the Tacoma Rainiers or something. And he was like, we were on a road trip, and he roomed with Varitek. And Varitek got traded, and they were like, he's like number one draft pick twice. He like won the like Golden Spike. He was like one of the greatest college baseball players of all time.
Georgia Tech.
And then they called D'Lo, and Varitek's on the phone in the hotel room, and he's like, okay. And he's like, oh, okay. And like they're like, hey, D'Lo, they want to talk to you. And D'Lo picks up the phone, and he's like, oh God, I'm gonna get a new rooming assignment or something. And it's like, it might have been Duquette on the other end. D'Lo says it was Duquette, and they were like, "Yeah, like we can't wait for you to be here. We've always wanted like a tall left-handed pitcher. In our minor league system, we haven't had that for a while."
Dominican.
And I was
check all the boxes.
I was like, D'Lo, did you correct him? He was like, absolutely not. Absolutely. I was like, yeah, can't wait to get there. Can't wait. He was like, oh, they had no idea who I was, but I was very happy to go to Boston. He was like, oh yeah, they definitely thought I was like, some version of like left-handed, like Mike Myers, like shut him down for like 2 or 3. He was like, they didn't know. That was fine. I was cool with going there.
That's smart though. Just go with it.
Was there one line in the people you interviewed, like, because from your position, it has to be, you're just hoping you get those lines, right? You're hoping that you get, all right, I can bridge this to the next thing. Oh, wait, we could do a whole like 10 minutes on that. Was there one line that stuck out, above all the other ones? Because I didn't think Osama bin Laden was making it into this doc.
Yeah. Grady was great. I remember the lines, like, so we did Pedro last, and it was like, all right, like, he's a huge piece of this thing, and you need to get him there, like, get those lines. So he walked in, and Nick was like, you can't, because those 2 seasons, they're not like, he's a Hall of Fame pitcher. He's the greatest of his generation. But those 2 seasons weren't exactly like his pinnacle. They're not like very fun for him to talk about. So like the first 10 minutes of the conversation was like, he was kind of softballing some answers. And then I was like, oh, I get it. He's just like ultra competitive. So I would just be like, well, like, I don't know. Did you even have the accuracy back then in 03 to like hit like Soriano if you wanted to? And he was like, I was a sharpshooter. I absolutely like could do this. And then from that point on, it was all like him reliving it like completely competitively every game. He was like super candid. I couldn't believe he was like, he said he didn't mean to hit Soriano. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to say, and I just ran a fastball in on Jeter and it happened to hit his hand. And he paused and he was like, my target was Jeter. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is good. Yeah.
And then the ambulance line, I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
It's because you were egging him on. That makes more sense because he like kind of went for it with some of those lines. That was huge.
Yeah. I was and I was like, after the interview, I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. This is what, and it's totally weird because it's like, you go back and watch the footage and you don't, like, 20 years on, you realize like that game, the way it was isn't the way it is. I mean, not to mention those games were like 5 hours long, but like just the policing, guys hitting each other, the drinking in the clubhouse, like just the goofing around, like all that stuff it's not coming back. Like if a pitcher sends Aaron Judge to the hospital, he's not finishing that game, And then in 2003, during the Zimmer game, during that brawl, no guys get thrown out. No guys get ejected from that game.
It is crazy.
Like there's a full-on brawl. Don Zimmer's 70 gets tossed to the ground, and Pedro just goes back out and finishes the game. And even in a year later, July 24th, like Tanyan Sturtz, like big brawl,
bleeding from his ears,
bleeding from the ear. Trot Nixon goes back, plays right field. Tanyan Sturtz goes back on the mound and throws like another inning. I was like, what is going on here? Nobody gets kicked out of these games.
That's like, a great point. I never considered that. It never occurred to me that they were just a lot after trying to literally kill each other. They were like, that boys will be boys. Get back out there.
And Tanyan's from Worcester. He's from Worcester.
Right.
So
local kid.
And he had given
local kid, Tanyan.
So we're reading, like, we read everything. You're kind of neurotic about the information because you don't know what people will remember 20 years on. So we're reading everything. And I read this article it was July 23rd. It was the day before the fight. And he gives an interview to the Globe in which he was like, yeah, I remember the rivalries of the 70s and the brawls that they used to have. And he said something like, it's not like today, like if I go out and hit a guy, we're not exactly going to get into a brawl. And like 12 hours later, it's like he's
bleeding from his
fist fight.
Yeah. On the verge of death.
When you kind of went and you had the 3 parts of the series and it comes out to a little over 3 hours, do you feel like there could have been more than just the 3 hours? There could have been a 4th episode. Was there stuff you wanted to hit on that you just didn't have the room to do so?
Yeah. So Netflix, we got the job really last fall, and we did some interviews at the beginning of December, a couple in January, but the bulk were done in February and March. So it was a really quick turnaround. And they were like, okay, it's 2 episodes, 45 minutes each episode. And we were like, that's not going to work. So the original cut we sent them was like 5 hours long. It was like 4 episodes. And we were like, and we can do more. I don't think we even got to the comeback in those first like 4 or 5 hours. So we wanted to do
can
like,
you
like
send me all that? Like,
yeah, let's just do
that,
two.
I could take more.
Yeah,
Seriously.
can you send me the director's cut? That's what I was going to ask is, what was the most painstakingly difficult thing to leave on the cutting room floor?
What was the hardest cut? It was the hardest cut.
What was the hardest cut?
There was a bunch. There was a couple with the players, and there was a couple in the front office. Like linearly, the whole story of Theo going down to Nicaragua to sign Jose Contreras was hilarious. Because they rented out the hotel, that all the rooms around Jose Contreras, to try to get him. And like Theo's like 3 weeks on the job, and they rented out all the hotel rooms around him to try to block out the Yankees. And they thought they had him.
Fucking
and
awesome.
Then he was like, yeah, I was sitting at the hotel bar with our South American scout, and he sees the Yankees guys go up, and he was drinking I was drinking like a mind eraser or something, and kind of sipping it, and then they're up there for an hour, and then 2 hours, and he was like, and then on the third hour it was like, okay, the Yankees aren't gonna get him, and he was like, yeah, so I had a couple of those that night, and that was really good. We left that, and then the whole Kevin Millar rally karaoke guy was hilarious.
Yeah,
where he's
Bruce Springsteen.
Where he gets he's down in Texas, and it's actually the day that Bill Millar hit like 2 grand slams from either side of the plate
in Texas.
And he goes down there, and he's in Dallas, and Grady calls everybody into the clubhouse, and he's sitting there. Everybody's sitting there, and Grady's like, all right, we have a very serious legal issue we need to cover with you guys. And they roll in this TV, and 2 FBI agents roll in with the TV, and they put in this tape, and it's a newscaster. And the newscaster is like, we have been following this one criminal for the last several years. He's done heinous crimes in Florida and Minnesota, California, and Texas. He's wanted in 4 states. And Kevin's sitting next to Ortiz and Bill Millar, and he's like, oh my God, it's Pedro. He's like, they're talking about Pedro because Pedro's going to get his citizenship at the time. He's like, oh my God, we're going to lose our ace. This is awful. Something's come up. And they put in the tape, and it's like Blair Witchy kind of like look to it. And some guy in tight jeans, 19 years old with his back turned, and he's just pumping his fist to Born in the USA. And he slowly turns around, and Millar's like, I'm on the edge of my seat thinking like, man, Pedro, this doesn't look like him. And then he slowly turns around. It's clearly Millar. And the whole team turns to him and is like, Kevin? And he was like, oh, dear God. And it turned out his roommate in college was a Dallas FBI agent who had this tape and had played this whole prank on him. And then John Burkett got a hold of the tape, brought it to. He was like, that was embarrassing enough. And then we're playing Oakland the series later. And he's like, 7th inning, we're down 3-2. And he's like, I'm getting ready. I'm there at first base. And all of a sudden I hear Born in the USA playing. And he's like, I look up, and it's just me on the Jumbotron. And he was horrified. And he looks in the Oakland A's dugout. And Tito was the bench coach. And Tito is on a Gatorade bucket sitting there. And he laughed so hard, he fell backwards into the dugout and like hurt his back and had to like go into the clubhouse and get ice for it. There was that. There was Derek Lowe giving the crotch rocket to the Oakland A's.
Yep, Terrence Long.
And he was like, the way he explains it's more like the way they explain it. He's like, as soon as I did the crotch rocket, like wrestling PDW, whatever move, I thought to myself, not the best move. And he was like, we're popping champagne in Oakland. and I look through the clubhouse door and I see like half the Oakland A's team running in to try to fight me. And I was like, what did you do? He was like, I slowly closed the door and just stuck my head out and said, guys, it's over. You already lost. That's it. We'll see you next season.
It's like, later, guys. Take it easy.
Yeah. See ya.
Hey, thanks for coming out, but you guys lost.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy you didn't win there. You had a chance, too.
Yeah. Yeah. He was great. So, like, there was a bunch of stuff, like hours of stuff that we wanted to get in there that was just like, couldn't get in.
I feel like you have to like do some sort of YouTube series with the extra footage. Like, it has to see because it's almost not like you are possessing history. It's like the JFK files now. Like, you have to put it out there somewhere.
Yeah, we cut it together. I was just like, I remember at the end, it was in July, and they were like, you can't go over a certain amount of time for episode 1. And we were way over, and we had to cut like 4 or 5 minutes. So we were arguing between Rally Karaoke or Crotch Rocket. And Nick and I were, my brother, and I was like, Rally Karaoke's got to stay, and Rally Karaoke's got to stay. And he's like, no, Crotch Rocket. So we come back, and they ended up both being cut out. And I was like, right up to the end, I was like, Rally Karaoke guys got to come in. They're like, okay, yeah, to license Born in the USA is like half the budget of the film. And I was like, oh, okay, so can't do that.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that kind of checks out. I didn't even think of that. You guys have to play by the rules and all that. That must suck.
Oh, it was terrible. When we got you go out and you're like, all right, well, Born in the USA can't be that expensive for like a 30-second clip. And I'm an idiot. And
that little song. Yeah.
The line producer came in and was like, didn't even say anything. She just like showed me the number, and I was like, oh God, okay, yeah, no. I was like, I'll fire myself to get that money back, but then we won't have a film.
Yeah, that sucks. Because I mean, there's got to be so much good shit that I hope at some point sees the light of day. Who do you think, like, once this comes out, because I know that there's a lot of people that are involved and a lot of people that you interviewed.
Yeah.
But is there someone in particular that you are looking for their kind of like approval from? Like, whose thumbs up would mean the most to you? That, hey, like you guys got it right. Like, that was great.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Varitek or like Wakefield's family or somebody, if they were like, you got it right. I remember Timlin after the interview, because like he was on the 06-07 team, so he kind of knew me. And I remember telling him, don't worry, I'll get this. He was like, you got to get this right for Wake. And I was like, don't worry. Like, we'll try to get it right for him. So I feel like if you get approval on that, everything else is like great.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for like A-Rod's or Derek Jeter's approval, obviously.
No.
So, yeah.
No, you actually want their like disapproval.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mostly them.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely did nail it on like the Wake part. Like I said, I don't cry about shit. I don't even cry like when people die. Like people that I know.
I've never seen you cry.
Yeah.
Wait till I die.
What's horrifying now that we're like, we make the film and it's really getting done at the end of August when the Sox are still kind of in it. And the AL was so open this year. Like the Yankees got like basically 3 bye weeks to the World Series.
For real.
And we're like, we're 2 games back. We can, like, they're going to make it and this is going to be great. Maybe they'll be playing in the ALCS. And I remember in September when the Sox got swept by the Mets, I was like, fuck, this isn't happening. And then it was like, I kept holding out hope. And then we lost that last game to the White Sox. And I was like, that's not good. And even the last week of the season, because like the Royals were tanking, they weren't trying to win it. The Mariners faded out. Minnesota faded out. And I was like, we can't beat the Tigers. Like, can we, like, some sort of rally? Can we win 7 in a row or something at the end here? But
you're basically summing up this podcast for the last 2 months. That's essentially what Section 10
it was
has
horrifying.
been.
And when we were down in spring training, I was down there, I think the day that Cutter Crawford said, like, my goal this year is to throw 160 innings. And I was like, he's the number 2. Like, like, who's going to pitch these innings? Like, I was like, who is going to throw these innings in August and September? Giolito's hurt. Kenley Jansen is like totally checked out, like left a team at the end of the year. So I was like, I'm like, just mathematically, I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's like 250 free innings here in September that we have no one to cover this. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we can get like a huge lead by the end of July and maybe just like play 500 baseball from then on in. Didn't work out, clearly, obviously.
No.
Anyway, back to 2004. That was that was a lot more fun. This isn't really a question. I just kind of wanted to give a hat tip. I thought you perfectly summed up what the feeling was at Yankee Stadium, because some of these other documentaries, I don't think they do a great job of like really summing up what the vibe was, like what it was like to go into that stadium. I went to the Who's Your Daddy game. Obviously, you were there, in 03. And was that a big, like, goal for you guys coming into this to really like show what it was like to be in the crowd? A lot of times they just show Spike Lee. I don't give a damn about Spike Lee. Like that's not what it was like. Like people were spitting on people. People were like getting in real fights that weren't just little shots. Like people were trying to like kill each other. So you guys summed that up really well. After that
03 game, in Game 7 when we were leaving the stadium, it's an intimidating place. It's not like, Fenway Park, you kind of walk there. It's kind of like small. You can park in Brookline or Boylston or something, and you kind of walk in. And there, it's like you can't walk in. Like the stadium is in the Bronx, like a couple blocks off. You're kind of like in the projects a little bit. It's like it's an intimidating place. And you after that Game 7, 2003, Tim, my little brother, was 10. Wearing a Red Sox hat, and some dude tried to steal it off of his hat, and he was like, F you. And my dad turned around and like, he had just told me too. He was like, be careful. Don't say anything. Don't go after anybody. This isn't Lincoln. This is the Bronx. Like, this isn't Fenway Park. It's different here. Yeah. And like, he had told me that like 30 seconds before, and then some dude tried to steal the hat off Tim, and my dad just absolutely turned on the guy, and he was like punching him in the ribs, and he's like 55 at the time. He's like, and the cops are there like splitting him up. And I was like, okay, like, so don't do what you do, just do what you say type of thing. But I was like, it was especially the old Yankee Stadium. Oh yeah. Because the new one's like much nicer. It's kind of like walking into a casino, like the new one. Whereas the old one was like, those hallways they were like tunnels. They were cement tunnels that vibrated the sound, and it just felt like the people were on top of you. So getting that right, like just having personally been there, was a huge thing. Just the intimidation factor of going up to the Bronx. But like, you can I wear a Red Sox hat around New York all the time. I don't get nobody says anything. But if you wear a Yankees hat anywhere in Boston, somebody's going to say something to you. Like, you can't do that. Doesn't matter where you are. I
try to explain to like the younger fans that like that generation or that era, if you wore Red Sox and Yankee stuff in like the 03-04 time period, it was like gang colors. Like if you were wearing Red Sox stuff in New York or vice versa, like you had to essentially be prepared to defend yourself. Like you didn't put yourself in danger. Yeah.
You didn't feel safe.
No,
like straight up didn't feel safe.
No,
you're just walking around with like a middle finger on like in the middle of your hat to whatever fan. Like, if somebody, I remember a guy my dad had given. I was at the July 24th fight game, and the day before we also lost to the Yankees. Millar hit like 3 home runs and we lost.
He did.
But we were down there. My dad invited a friend from New York, and he came with a Yankees hat on. And we were sitting down there, and my brother Nick was sitting next to the guy, and he came down in the Yankees hat. And my brother Nick was like, "You got to take it off." And the guy thought it was like, oh, like funny. He was like, "No, you have to take that off. We're not sitting with you." Like, he's a good family friend. Like, he's been to like Thanksgivings, and we're like, nope, That's it. We're disowning you from this point on, unless you take the goddamn hat off. So it was like, you didn't want to be around it. And so back then it was like, there'd be a fight in the stands every Yankees Red Sox game.
Multiple.
Like every
inning, basically.
Constant.
Every inning you would look up and it was like, there was no wave. It wasn't like the wave was going around. Everybody would stand up to like check out like the guy being, escorted out with like 4 or 5 guys. And
it would be surprising if 5 innings went by and there wasn't a fight. It's like somebody's due to get knocked out really soon.
The best part about the bleachers in that era was you could sucker punch a Yankee fan in the face and they're getting kicked out.
Every time.
Like that
Every
was,
time.
yeah, you could just literally, someone's wearing a Jeter jersey and you just punch them right in the fucking face and immediately 6 security guards are on top of the Yankee fan being like, get the fuck out of here, dude, you piece of shit.
What were you
doing? You need an ice pack for your knuckles, sir? You good? All right, see you later.
It was like, Trot used to, Trot was like, it's not in it. We had to cut it for time, but Trot going through the stuff that was thrown at him when he was at Yankee Stadium was hilarious. He was like, oh yeah. He was like a tape ball with a bunch of change in it. And he was like, and think about that. He was like, somebody came with a roll of nickels and also a thing of duct tape just to do that in the stands and then throw it at me. And he was like, oh, CDs were thrown at me. He was like, one day they had like a Joe DiMaggio bat day, like those little souvenir bats. And he was like, that was just terrible. He's like, you're going to catch a fly ball. It's just like a Joe DiMaggio bat, like being thrown in front of you. And he was like, it was like a 4-minute thing where he was just going through everything. He was like, one time a shoe got thrown at me. Like a guy's walking around without a shoe now in the stands. It's just like, I have a shoe.
Yogi Berra Axe Day. It was wild.
Every time we played the Red Sox,
they were just talking about us.
I read some interview with, Jeter, and he was saying that the one thing the Yankees never did, because like they were talking about Grimace with the Mets, how it's kind of a gimmick, and how the Yankees never did any gimmicks. And I was like, dude, fucking Bucky Dent threw out the first pitch, Game 7, 2004.
Yeah.
Like, that's a gimmick. Like, it's the guy who hits the home run in 78.
They have a gimmick every game. Their whole life is a gimmick. But you keep saying this phrase, and I know this isn't a you thing, it's a Netflix thing, a cut for time. Netflix knows they're not a channel, right? Like, they know there's not another show coming on. There's no commercials. There's none of that. What are they talking about cutting it for time? Well, Red Sox fans, especially modern, I know your dad's watching the White Sox Red Sox game as opposed to this documentary. The rest of us would much rather be watching the 04 team. What are they talking about cutting it for time?
Yeah.
It was like one of these things where it was like, I got it. It was like service to the story type stuff where you get to, like, I'm like, we're putting everything in here. And they're like, okay, you've just spent 20 minutes talking about, Kevin Millar. Kevin Millar drinking in the clubhouse, or like Kevin Millar like getting a videotape or something like that. Like a lot of the stuff we cut was it was honestly just serving us like what I wanted to in there and stuff. And there, you get notes from everybody. So I think one of the things is like you make it 80 minutes, although it's going to be 60, and some of the stuff is going to be cut. But you're like, it was supposed to be 45, so we saved 15 minutes. It's kind of like the way where it's like, all right, working a hitter. You're just like, all right, I'm going to throw him a pitch, his first at bat that he can hit. So on the next at bat, he's like looking for it. It's kind of like that working. With, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm sitting here like me and my brother. And when Netflix says like the algorithm usually says 2 episodes, 45 minutes, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what an algorithm is. So, can't argue.
They can be very specific. They can be specific at Netflix. Yeah, that's for sure.
Doesn't it just sound like the 04 team? Bunch of guys that you want to crack open an ice cold blue moon with, T-Dog?
I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. What'd you say? I'm sorry. Damn Damn it.
Some beers can say that they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball, they just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. It's the natural choice for opening day and all season long. Hey, Coley, how about on that stream on Friday? You, me, and a couple Blue Moons. How's that sound, pal?
I think I may need more than a couple. That's what it really sounds like.
Yeah, I would love to have more than a couple. I think we got some in the fridge still from the last stream. So we'll crack open some ice cold Blue Moons from its refreshing flavor with Valencia orange peel for a subtle sweetness and hints of coriander. Blue Moon Belgian style wheat ale is a one-of-a-kind beer that's made brighter. It's carefully crafted and full flavored with refreshing notes and a smooth, creamy finish. Blue Moon was brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia and get you excited for the new season. Why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something that is one of a kind? Its bold flavor, bright explosion of color, and iconic orange slice ritual guarantees a one-of-a-kind beer experience that is perfect for spring weather. Best served with its signature orange garnish to showcase its beautiful hazy color. A beer that's good only comes around once in a blue moon, but you can enjoy it all season long. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian style wheat ale. It's a one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared to see your delivery options. That is get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared. Blue Moon, made brighter, celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
What was the process of going through like the clubhouse footage? Was that coming through the team and then you guys were like scrubbing through it to see what you want and didn't want? Were there times where you were just watching it and you were like, holy hell, I'm watching behind the scenes of like the best part of my life and I kind of just want to see what's in there? Or was a guy sending stuff in? What was the process?
So it was like MLB would send some footage in, but all the clubhouse footage was, we went down to Millar's and he was moving at the time. He had this like really nice house and he's moving to his ranch now about like 40 minutes.
His house was on like a cul-de-sac with like fucking with John Lackey, Buckholz. Jake Arrieta, and Buckholz. Yeah.
Buckholz was his neighbor.
Yeah.
And he was like, I remember sitting outside and I was like, oh yeah. Like Buckholz wouldn't remember me, but I was like in the clubhouse. He was like, he brought the whole value of this cul-de-sac down. This is awful. So
yeah.
he was like, yeah. And to like, he was the first guy on the cul-de-sac. So like the gate says 15 on it. And so like everybody who lives there has to go through like the big 15 gate. And, but we went down there and he was moving. He was like, I don't know where the tapes are. Like he had all these tapes and we were rummaging through and he was like, I found them. So we were sitting down there and like, it was on a little camcorder and it was like a bunch of hours of footage and he was like playing it. And he was like, skip through this. But like, I was like, dude, I worked in the clubhouse during the 07 series. Like, I get it. And he was like, okay, yes. Cause Millar would shoot everything at any given time. So it was like, he was like, it's Netflix, right? You can show naked guys. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's the vibe we're going for, but yeah, like
you guys want to see Pedro's dick?
Yeah, we were like, yeah, I don't think that's the thing we're going for. And he was like, oh, all right, man, all right. And so a lot of it came through Kevin or like some of the other players who just had camcorders. Yeah,
we'll take you into the showers of the 04 Red Sox. Like, watch this documentary.
He was a guy. He was like our whole thought process was, the team change their culture. Like they're losers for 85. Like everybody, like we want it to be a rivalry, but you looking at it in 2003, you're like, oh yeah, it's 85-0. This is a rout. So our whole thing was like, how did they change it? Ownership buying in and putting a ton of money into the team. Theo using analytics, which was like, I think like Cleveland and Oakland were doing it and nobody else was. And it was Kevin Millar, like, but like, it's like after a game, it could be a regular season game back then. It wasn't like 4 or 5 beat reporters in the clubhouse. It was like 25 media members, like in there. Like when the Patriots won 2 times in the early like we have that, like when they're coming down to Faneuil Hall on the boats and everything. And everybody's like, yeah, go They're not chanting go Patriots. They're chanting literally Yankees suck. It's the parade for the championship dynasty team, and the fans are chanting Yankees suck. So it's like, this pressure that this team felt for so many years. that old line, 25 guys, 25 different cabs. That was kind of true. Like just the atmosphere of Boston. The way I put it to like members of our team who weren't around back then or weren't from Boston or from New York, I was like, you seen of Mice and Men where Lenny, he's got the rabbit and he just loves it so much, but he ends up killing it. That I was like, that's kind of what the fans and the media did to the players for like 85 years. And Millar came in and was like, nope, we're not doing that. We're doing something completely different. We're making this a walled garden where we're just bros in here and family. And so like he was as important, and like Theo would kill me for saying this, but like he's almost as important as like Theo was, or like any amount of money you're going to put in. Like he's one of the pillars of why that team won. And he's just a great dude. I told my wife, I was like, I know, like we get a winning invitation for a +1. I'm bringing Kevin Millar. I'm not bringing you.
He also had the Red Sox players lot attendant basically opening up the fucking thing, set the tone. Yeah, Jimmy, he's great. The fucking man. I don't know how many years he's been there. He's been there for as long as I can remember. But having him open it up really set the tone.
That was so Jimmy. We were at we're in Somerville for the Winterfest, and we were sitting in the back. We were sitting there, and it was like Breslow was there, and Jimmy Polino was there, the security guy for the thing. And Jimmy's like we've known him for a while. He's just a character, and he's just like going off on the team. I'm like, dude, Breslow's right behind you. He's like, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm not saying anything that nobody does. And Nick and I were standing there and we're like, Jimmy, we got to put you in the film, dude. And he's like, bro, I would love to be in this thing. Let's do it.
He nails it too.
Yeah.
I know he's not in it for long, but he was going for it. That was big.
Yeah. I told Jimmy, I was like, because you send it to Netflix, and like all the Netflix people were in LA, they don't really they're not super aware of the Boston culture. And they were like, who's this Jimmy Polino? We need more of him. And so I told Jimmy, I was like, you're a big star at Netflix. I talked to him yesterday. And he was like, kid, you have to be fucking kidding me. This is going to be huge. And I was like, your number's going to blow up, Jimmy. And he was like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's the best. I don't know how long he's been around for, but I can't remember a time where he wasn't, so like every time, because I walk down that way to get to gate D, see him every time, just give him the fucking salute as I'm walking in. And yeah, he's steady Eddie over there in the Red Sox.
You know what it's like? It's like working at the Vatican. I think I'm the only guy to not keep my job there. Everybody that I worked with in 06, 07, they all are still there. Nobody ever leaves Fenway Park. It's like
Coley did. Coley worked the overnight security.
Oh my God. And you left. Yeah. I left too. I don't know. I was like the sixth man.
I feel like it worked out for both of you. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I told my wife, I was like, if I ever get a man cave, it's just going to be like the jock straps of Hall of Famers that I washed or something. That's it.
That's incredible.
And then the pictures Kevin Millar took of their actual pieces right next to them.
Yeah. Not blurred. Like that is his dick. That is not made up.
Yeah. It's a real dick.
Comparison.
Anyone else have anything?
Well, I also saw on Barnacle.tv that you guys did This Is a Robbery, which is another really good documentary about the Gardner Museum heist.
It was, you know where the Gardner is, right? It's like,
I've been there.
It's like 100 yards from Fenway Park. I was like, so people are like, you really specialize with like Boston stories. I was like, actually, I really specialize in about 100-yard thing around Fenway Park. I was like, there's like a Sunoco between the 2 points. I was like, I don't know, maybe the next story is about that Sunoco.
This dock on the Big Poppy Bridge is going to be wild.
So that's it. The marsh and the field survey on the actual
That's
fence.
it. It's like that 100-yard swath.
Oh,
that's
do a doc on the history of the baseball tavern and just get our numbers. We got all the stories.
We used to work until when you're in the clubhouse, you work about 2.5 hours after every game. So it was. If the game ended at 10:30, those games were so long back then. It would end at like 10:30. and you're like rushing to do the laundry. Like I was 21. I'm like, I want to get to the baseball tavern. And I would always get there right as everybody was pouring out. And I was like, damn it. And it's like, it's something special having a full Red Sox Boston crowd pour out of the baseball tavern. It's not like, it's like the funniest things you'll ever hear. And there's like guys like tripping over everything, but they're like hilarious.
Fucking hilarious.
Special. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite tavern story? I feel like tavern was as much Fenway as anything else around there. It would be like the fourth inning, Sox are down 6-0. Like, I can't wait for tavern. This is going to be way better than what we're watching right now.
Yeah.
I remember going in one time and I was like in like my Clubhouse stuff, and they had when you walk downstairs at the tavern, there used to be this old guide from like 1946, and it's like this kid like shelling out, like it's a caricature of a kid shelling out like scorecards. Mm-hmm. And I walked down and this drunk guy was there, and he was like, dude, this fucking caricature looks exactly like you. And I was like, no, it doesn't. And I turned around. It was identical to me. And I was like, oh my God. And the bartender was walking down and he was like, is that you? And I was like, no, it's not me. They didn't base this off me. It's just some normal Irish Catholic skinny white kid. That's like basically my exact description. Like, it's fine.
God, I
got to get that. Now that it's shut down.
Yeah, you should get the item, man.
Yeah.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, T-Dog.
Since you did work in the 2007 Clubhouse,
oh boy,
is there any chance, now that we've done a 2004 documentary, that maybe we'd venture down for a 2007 documentary? Doesn't have to be 3 parts. Maybe it's just 2 parts. Maybe it's more, 4 or 5. Is that
Zero
thought ever
chance.
cross your mind?
I've never used a ticket. I haven't used a ticket to get into the ballpark since I worked there, just because everybody I know still works there. And I'm like, nope, I'm not telling any stories from 07, like on camera. Like, that's not, like, I was like, no, I like this. But it was great. It was like, I remember we went on the road with the team in the playoffs. And I remember, I don't know when I was 21, I was an idiot. We played in Colorado, and I only packed short sleeve shirts and like short, like khakis. And so we get there and it's like 35 degrees during those 2 games. And I'm sitting there and I'm like freezing during the whole thing, because we'd go out of the clubhouse sometimes and like just walk around. And we were sitting there, and I think it was Lowell. He was like, you didn't pack anything? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay, well, I think if you drink enough beer, you'll be okay. And I was like, yeah, no, that connects. That sounds about right. So when we finally won, I was the last guy to get on the team plane back, because I had left my shoes in the hotel room. So I had to walk to the plane with like barefoot, and it's like 35 degrees. I'm in shorts. I'm barefoot. I look like hell. We've been celebrating all night, and I'm getting onto the plane. I look like a hobo sneaking onto the plane. And I go and sit in the back, and I haven't slept in like 36 hours or something. I stink. I have no shoes. I'm ragged. And I'm like, all right, it's a 3-hour plane ride. I'll be able to sit in the back and fall asleep because you got to get off the plane as a clubby, and you like got work to do. You got to get the bags off. And I get back there, and immediately, like Beckett, Wake, and Lowell, they saw the condition I was in, and they're like, nope, you can't fall asleep during this whole time. And I was like, please let me fall asleep. And they made me hold the World Series trophy over my head and walk it around to everybody that wanted to see it on the plane ride. And I was like, guys, please let me just get some sleep. And they were like, nope, can't do it. And they're like, find the kid some fucking shoes. You're an embarrassment. I'm like, I'm sorry. It was not good.
Jesus
not good.
Christ.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that 07 team got after it. They had some
they were great.
Them Texan boys on that team.
Bobby Kilty was on that team.
Yes.
And his dad was from Fitchburg, and he had played high school baseball with my dad. And I went up to tell Bobby Kilty it. And in that moment, like Kilty's like 6'4", he's a major league player. Like he's huge. He's an incredible athlete. And I remember my dad was like, mention it to him. And I was like, okay. So I go up and mention it. And in that moment, I thought to myself, like, God, the gene pool here is completely different for you and me. Like there's like, you're like a good 5 inches taller and 150 pounds of muscle more than me. And you're a major league baseball player. Our dads played together, and I'm washing your underwear.
He was a large human, that guy. He could put him down too. Yeah, he could put him down. Yeah.
Yeah, huge homer in that series. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Fuentes.
Yeah. I remember like it's like the whole thing that we were trying to capture. Like when I would leave the clubhouse, everybody would ask like, what are these guys like? And I was like, I wanted to capture the kind of there used to be this small room. It's like expanded now, but the washer dryer used to be in this like one corner space about the size of the room behind me. And the washer dryers had been there since, I think, 1972. They were like big, loud, terrible. Like they like literally smoked. But it was the only room without a fire alarm. So Joe Cochran, the then clubhouse manager, he'd sit back there and he'd smoke heaters, and Wake and Mirabelli would sit back there after their starts with like, Wake would have like the ice pack on his arm and his knees, and he'd be drinking like a Bud, and Mirabelli would be sitting down on a milk crate with like ice on his knees doing a Sudoku, drinking a Bud. And like there was a little TV from like 1983, like where you could watch the highlights. It was like live feed. Yeah. And I was like, if I can like capture what that is in a film, then we're good. That's it. Like that's kind of what baseball was to me back then. It still is, like just a bunch of dudes going out, and they just happen to be like incredibly good athletes. I think the first iteration, like when we were trying to title the thing, Netflix came up with the title. I was like, what about Bad Body Baseball? Like that should be the title to this whole thing.
Yeah, they were just built different back then. And now that I'm thinking of it, how is your conversation with Curt Schilling? Because I think he is he's definitely on bad terms with Red Sox fans as of right now.
That was touchy. I went to, because there's a whole Wakefield podcast thing that he had done. So, and that was kind of like a live wire, but I talked to some of the players beforehand, like, hey, is this okay? And they said, absolutely, like, go do it. He was part of that 04 team. We're staying present in those. Like, the doc doesn't go any further than them landing at Fenway after they win. So, like, I talked to some of the players about it, and they were like, yes, go get him. That's fine. Like, we got the thumbs up from them. So then we went down there and interviewed him, and he was like, he's like totally, his like interview was like 4 hours long. He remembers like every single pitch that he did during that whole thing. He's like one of those first guys, like tunneling wasn't like a term back then, but like he would do that. And he was there in 06 and 07 when I was in the clubhouse. So he kind of like residually like knew my face. Like he had no clue who I was, but like I guess it left pretended to know, where it was kind of a little bit more familial. But yeah, it was like one of those things where everybody was like, are you going to go get him? And we were like, all right, let's check it out with some of the guys first. And they said, go for it. So we did. And he's great in the doc. And like, that's
what I'm saying. Like
when he's just talking
answers.
baseball,
he's so good at
one of the best. We've had him on the podcast.
He's the worst you've ever heard. Baseball, he nails it.
We've had him on the podcast twice, two or three times. At
least twice, yeah.
And we would have a rule that we would have like a buzzer for any time that he got away from baseball. It's like, we don't want to hear your thoughts on politics. We don't want to hear like anything else. Don't need to hear it. But if you can get him to just stick to baseball and tell baseball stories, he's one of the best baseball storytellers. Yeah,
there's no one better. I mean, you'd ask one question and it'd be like 10 minutes later, like you would have to ask the next one. He'd go in detail about everything. Like, it's actually funny. Like one of the stories that
did he tell you the Cannon story?
No.
Oh,
that's one of the best stories we've ever heard.
It's one of the best. Yeah.
What's that story?
You're giving him time to load up the cannon. That's
I think what was he pitching in like Pittsburgh or something like that? It might have been
Baltimore or something like that.
Some ballpark. Whenever like the team hit a home run, they would shoot off the cannons, and he like gave up like a ton of home runs, and like the pitching coach or the manager came out to like talk to him, and he's like, I thought you were going to take me out of the game. And he was like, no, we were just giving them a chance to load the cannons back up. Like, they're out of cannonballs, like how home runs you get.
We heard a story that was when they went down to go sign him, because it was like convoluted. It's like a trade and sign type deal to get Curt Schilling on the team.
Yeah.
And Curt was doing his own deal, and they flew down there, like Jed's down there and Theo's down there, and like they're talking to him, but like every 5 minutes he gets up and leaves the room, goes to his office, and Jed's like, I thought he was like going to the bathroom. And then finally when we go to hand the contract to him, it's in his library, and and I put it down on his desk, and at the desk is like a very thumbed over Contracts for Dummies book on the desk. But I guess he had been like going back and like reading through and then coming up and like talking to Jed and Theo about. But
Curt confirm it?
Like, I think Curt did not confirm that. He was like, like we brought it up. He was like, that never happened. So he's like wildly smart about baseball, and he's incredible to speak to about the game. But yeah, outside those lines, it's like, whoa.
I did like the way you paired some of his lines. You paired some of his lines very well with other lines that you got. Won't like we've given away a little bit in this. Won't give away too much, but it was a very clever way of being like, here's a Curt quote, and maybe here's what actually happened quote from somebody else. Like, that was very clever. I like that.
And he's great. And one of the best parts about it was like how candid the guys were about like the whole Pedro, Tito, Schill thing. That was surprising to me. I always just assumed like everybody loved Tito and everybody loved each other in that clubhouse. And like Pedro was like, yeah, not exactly. It wasn't exactly a love fest. So that was surprising to me.
Yeah, because Pedro was like my contract. Like you brought in Schilling to replace me. Schilling brought his manager with him. And I don't have a contract after this year. I don't think that you're going to pay me. So like, you're basically just replacing me. So he probably thought like, fuck Schilling and fuck Tito.
And Tito was incredible. Tito was like, like I came in for the meeting. I come in for the Red Sox meeting, and like they ran him through this like this baseball game. Like
a simulator.
It was Carmine, wasn't
a simulator. It was who?
Was it Carmine? The computer, or was it pre-Carmine?
This is pre-Carmine.
It was pre that. It was oh god, he's the Arizona Diamondbacks GM now. Brian O'Halloran.
No. The computer was literally named
Mike Hazen.
Carmine.
Mike Hazen.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was either O'Halloran or Hazen who was playing. And Tito was like, I had over prepared, and I sit down and they make me take a questionnaire, like what you would do during these decisions, but Theo and Jed, they're like normal human beings who just like kind of want to have like fun sometimes. And they would throw in like some of the questions on the questionnaire are like, they're like, all right, 2-1 count. What would you do here? The next question was like, do you wear underwear all the time, or do you sometimes go commando? And he'd be like, oh, what the hell is this? Should I answer this or not? And they're like, we're just seeing how you react.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Yeah. I'm glad that you got Joe Torre. He was a good sport in this.
Yeah, Joe is great. Joe was really, and he looks like weirdly the exact same as he did 20 years ago.
Crazy.
That was the thing about Grady too. In 2003, I thought Grady was like 70 years old, and like he's like 50, and then
He
we
looks
went
much
to
better
interview.
now.
Yeah. You know who I would have loved if you were able to dig him up? And the Red Sox put out like a YouTube series where they're also like going through interviews. Mark Bellhorn. He just disappeared off the face of the earth. I know he lives in Arizona, but he hasn't come to any of the reunions. I don't know that he's ever spoken about 2004 publicly. And he played such a huge role in game 6, 7, and then game 1 of the World Series. And he was just this is nice. Gone.
Kevin Millar was like, he says like one word every month.
His nickname is Mute.
Yeah. He was, I remember before game 1 of the World Series, ESPN was, they were trying to do the football camera, like that they do the line camera. Mm-hmm. And they strung it from the pesky pole to the Fisk pole before the game. And they didn't know, they pulled it too tight and they pulled down the pesky pole onto the field. This is like 2 hours before the game.
What? Which game is this?
And they were like,
when did this happen?
Yeah. And they were like, oh my God, we got to like pull so they had to pull the pesky pole back up. And they weren't like aligning it. They just were like, okay, just pull it back up. And the producer at ESPN was like, it's fine. It's not like somebody's going to hit the foul pole with a home run. And it's like the second inning, Mark Bellhorn like hits the foul pole. And the producer at ESPN was like, I'm looking at it like, just like hoping it doesn't fall again.
Wait, for game 1 of the World Series?
What?
Yeah, 2004. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That
was late in the game. That was like 7th or 8th inning.
Or 7th there. Yeah. Yeah.
Mid-game, the pole just falls down. What the hell?
It was the game-winning home run. Like it was, I believe it was 9-9 and it made it 11-9 Red Sox. It's just like, dong. Yeah. Like
they did not play well that game 1. They made a bunch of errors. Yeah.
That was all time. If he hit a home run and the foul pole fell. Like
I'm so confused at this. We pulled the pole down to what degree? Like
they pulled it down to like a 45-degree angle. Like
what?
It was like lobbed over, and they had to it was just like hanging there on the wire they had built, and they were like, "Oh my god!"
This was for the cameras. Like, was it?
Yeah,
for
they wanted to you know how that football camera. Yeah. So they scrapped that idea immediately. That's why you don't have that camera there anymore. I don't know how it would have. They were like, we were just testing it to see if it was like, if we could do it, but if a ball was hit, they didn't know.
It's super in the way.
Yeah,
I don't think you can put it anywhere where it's not in the way. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
They had to talk to the grounds crew people in MLB, and they were saying you could play by Tampa Bay rules, where if it hits the thing, and then they were just seeing if it could try it out.
This is a crazy story. I've never heard this.
I'd never heard this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
what a gem at the end here. This is crazy.
Yeah.
04 World Series, they pulled the foul pole down before the game. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's nuts. We do need to see that. We got to see the bonus footage somehow. I don't know how it happens, and I'm sure there's
we're trying to work on definitely crotch rocket, karaoke, all that stuff is cut together. But we're trying to work with Netflix that hopefully after the main release we can send it into the Ethernet.
There you go. Anyone else? Going once, going twice?
Awesome. That was great.
Yeah, you were incredible. I know Red Sox fans are going to love this. It is, again, not blowing smoke up your ass. It is the best 2004 film that I have ever seen. I think it's the best one in existence as someone who has seen them all. So if you are listening to this, please go watch it. It's called The Comeback 2004 Boston Red Sox. It's on Netflix. I know you have a subscription. Everybody does. So please go check that out. It was very, very, very well done.
It deserves the applause. It was so good. You got the applause?
It was great, yeah. We'll applause it after maybe.
No. This is a big moment. It
was great. It was great.
My only hope to the doc is that it resurrects some sort of feeling of we need to go sign Alex Bregman or Corbin Burns or get somebody, Pete Alonso. I don't know, do something.
Anybody. Yeah. Juan Soto. Yeah, Juan Soto for me.
Yeah, Juan Soto. He's going with Mets.
He could. I give it 5 booms. Colin Barnicle, thank you so much for taking the time. We very much appreciate it.
Unbelievable. Thank you so much for having me. I listen to you guys all the time. It's obviously like this is all during the season. It's all just wringing your hands about the Red Sox or my fantasy baseball team.
Yeah. Well, if you ever change your mind and you do want to do a doc on the 2007 Boston Red Sox, I would say Tyler Milliken could play the Jimmy role.
He's my guy. Yeah, you could be the Jimmy. Yeah,
you could be the Jimmy.
Need it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you soon. Big thanks to Colin Barnacle for making the time. A lot of time. I warned him. I was like, how much time you got? He's like, well, I'm good to go. And I said, well, some of these podcasts can go up to 3 hours. So is that something that you're prepared for? He said, bring it. And he stayed in for an hour and a half. I think he would have kept going if we kept going. I wanted him to not have to sit here forever and ever and ever. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that it gets to first pitch. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. A dear friend of ours actually reached out to me recently and said, hey, do you have a hookup for Yankee tickets? I'm trying to go to Yankee Stadium for the World Series. And I said, not only do I not want to help you, not only do I not care about you going to see the Yankees in the World Series, but I will, because I'm a good friend, give you this promo code, which we're going to get to in just 1 second, because the Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save even more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game of the event. The zone deals save even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats for you. Toggling the all-in pricing feature, that'll show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat and the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry today. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code SECTION10 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the promo code SECTION10, SECTION10 for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Tyler put together some topics, and boy, do they stink.
It's not really topics, it's more news.
Not his fault. No. Before you get defensive, not your fault. The effort, as always, appreciated. I'm just saying we're in that part of the offseason where it's like, man, do I not care about this news.
Last year we had the CBO search. That got us all the way through October.
Yeah. Well, that's because nobody wanted the job.
Fair take.
I was a Breslow turned down away from getting an interview.
Yeah. I think Coley got an interview and just doesn't want to say. He was just like, yeah, man, like if the 10's going to be back, then, how could I turn that down? But yeah, Coley probably got an interview.
I got a formal offer, but we were working on bringing the 10 back.
Yeah. Yeah, we were scheming.
I didn't need to Billy Bean it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is, Shout out to Breslow for getting the job, though. I mean, it obviously would have been Coley if he wanted it, but next man up, as they say. The Red Sox hired some guy, Tyler.
Respect him, please. I feel like the outrage on Twitter has angered me about this.
I'm not outraged. It's just like, it's like people like you get excited for hiring nerds.
I would call it excited.
I used to get excited when the Red Sox signed Keith Folk, the top closer on the market. I was like, fuck yeah. And you're doing backflips because they hired some fucking calculator guy.
I wouldn't go that far, but I do think if you're looking maybe for a positive angle to this, there is some. So the guy they did hire was Taylor Smith, director of predictive modeling for the Rays. He's an analytics guy. Make it simple, late 20s, seen as kind of a rising star in baseball, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a week ago, we got the report from Sean McAdam that Mike Grootman, the guy Heim hired from the Brewers, he's an assistant GM here. He's oversaw the analytics department the last few years. Mm-hmm. They want him focusing more on player acquisition. So they're kind of taking him out of that. It seems like Taylor Smith, now he may get the assistant GM role. Maybe they give him a different title here or that same title. I'm guessing it's some kind of promotion if he left the Rays, right? But that's the idea here. So there is a bit of a front office shakeup happening. But to add a young guy who is seen as kind of a rising star, how is that a bad thing? You need more fresh voices in this organization because we've seen for how long it's been a problem that the same cooks have been in the kitchen. You know, we talked about the turnover, and we saw this year with the audit and these different things. Bring in fresh voices. That's what Craig Breslow was supposed to do. That's what Chaim Bloom was supposed to do. And we really only got that out of Mike Grootman. I don't see how this can be a bad thing. You may want to frame it and be like, well, hey, this is them trying to be the Rays. They want to be cheap. The Phillies have a guy working the exact same role in their organization right now. So like, no, this is just where the sport is. This is where analytics are. And Taylor Smith, a young guy with some new ideas, cool, come along.
I think people rightfully get nervous when you hire from the Rays because it signals we're not going to spend money. And when it's the position that it is, it looks like, oh yeah, we're really trying to find cheap labor that can do the work of someone more expensive.
Correct.
That may not be the case. Like you said, he's a young guy. He may not be an idiot, but he also, at the end of the day, has no say on how much money they can spend, which makes it seem like he's very much being told, hey, find diamonds in the rough, which is not how the majority of the fan base wants to see them act. And you can point to the Phillies, a team that has more losses than any team in the history of the sport, and keeps coming up short. In fact, keeps going backwards year after year. So that's where I don't know that pointing to them having the same job matters here.
No, it's just more the analytics in the role. Like, you know, Catillo posted it today, the Dodgers and all the different roles they have of similar wording and similar things. It's just another guy who, this is what he does. He does analytics, and the Red Sox are an analytical organization. Just about every team is at this point. If you're not, you can't compete in today's game. So I don't know. I don't see the bad in that. Maybe you read into it and you say, well, yeah, they're trying to be cheap. It also seems like Paul Taboni, if he doesn't become the GM, he's going to get picked up by another organization here. Whether it's GM spot for the Giants or David Stearns, they have a relationship apparently that he might end up going to the Mets and taking over their GM spot. So maybe they're kind of preparing if Taboni gets picked off here, or he, you know, jumps up into the GM role here. Craig Breslow picks him, and there's one MLB executive from another team that guessed that was going to happen. Cool. But I don't know. I look at Taylor Smith and it's like, cool. This is a guy, young, bringing different voices in. That's what people wanted Chaim to do. Everyone asked, you know, after the year where he wasn't allowed to hire anyone, why didn't he go grab anyone else from the Rays? Why didn't he do any of that kind of stuff? Well, okay, here's a young guy that is clearly doing something right. He was an intern with the Dodgers, so he's worked with Andrew Friedman to some degree, like another guy who came over from the Rays. I just don't look at it and simply say, well, hey, you work for the Rays, you should be cheap. At the end of the day, that's a John Henry problem. I would still want a guy like this in my organization if you were spending. Like, don't look at him and frame that as the problem. I think it's more where the, you know, how the Red Sox operate today.
I think the Dodgers did it right. They hired from the Rays so they could be like, hey, what happens if we give you a shit ton of money to work with? That's the correct way to go about it. And I don't know that the Red Sox understand that that's part of it.
Right.
It's a fair question. Like, I think Chaim, to some degree, was like, all right, well, I expected in 22 and at least 2023, we were going to start acting like this. And they never did. And you end up getting caught in between where you're trying to compete and also build up at the same time. But I don't know. I think we're going to see a lot of shuffling in the front office right now because Breslow finally has the chance to hire guys that he wants. I wouldn't be surprised if he plucks a couple guys from the Cubs that he ends up liking, too.
Well, you bring up Chaim not bringing anyone over. And I do remember thinking that was weird because he did have that 1 year, couldn't hire from them, couldn't even talk to them, freeze. I do wonder if he was reaching out to guys and they were like, we don't think you have a very stable spot there, which could be me knowing what we know now, post looking back. But I mean, at that point, he wasn't able to spend. He was kind of handcuffed through those 2 years. Like, you talk about all the voices in the room. It's like, they weren't doing the firing part that happened with, 4 or 6 organizational people after Breslow had the audit over the year. So that's where it's like, I don't know. Breslow, I think, like we just talked about, that whole search happened last October. People kept turning them down. I think Breslow, and we kind of heard it last offseason, has more staying power than Chaim ever had a shot to have. And that's not a personal thing. I think it's just what the market's dictating right now. The Red Sox aren't the dream job it was when Theo got it, going back to the interview.
It's that, and it's the fact that, you know, no matter how fans here want to feel, the industry believes Chaim got fucked here. That is the belief. You know, fans can feel whatever they want. They want to say he sucked, he was the worst, you know, CBO of their lifetime, whatever it may be. There's a reason he has a job less than 2 years later. Like, the Cardinals have already said, hey, you're going to win this.
And climbing.
Yes, exactly. So it's like one of those things here where, if you were to fire Breslow and you went down this similar route, you thought it was hard hiring Craig Breslow. Imagine what it will be this time around.
It will genuinely be me. It will
seriously.
Actually
It'd be you or Paul Taboni if he was still in the org. And Paul Taboni's a meteoric rise, yes, through the org. So
that's a good word to use there, T-Dog.
Took 3 tries. But like that's a guy who's rare in the game and kind of getting hype. I'm not saying Taylor Smith is that kind of guy. He's not from a scouting background or anything, but also if you're taking one of your assistant GMs and they're now going to focus on acquiring players and making moves like that, that sounds like more of a good thing than a bad thing to me.
I'm also curious because it feels like GM, like Duquette was the GM. Am I wrong there? Like Dan Duquette was
the titles
the GM.
Are different.
The
now.
title, like to the point where I don't really know what the CBO actually does.
Well, like
couldn't tell you.
To me, it's another version of Pobo. Like Dombrowski came in here and he was president of baseball operations.
Sure.
And he wanted, would Cherington accept and just stay, GM and kind of do it that way and play it out. But I don't know. That just seems like the new title, which, comes with the pay and all the different things. And I don't know, like, where did CBO come from?
Great question. I don't know.
We just make shit up.
Like GM made things so clear, and now I don't know. Like I know with the Celtics, Brad Stevens and Mike Zarin are calling the shots. Like there are other people who work on that team for sure. I know it's them too. With the Red Sox, I know who they blame, but I don't know who's actually like making the deals. I don't know the ins and outs of it. Like we did when it was Theo and Hazen and then that crew. Like we knew who was truly behind it. Right now, it feels like there's a lot of people who could lay claim to certain things.
Yeah, I think you see like the way Heim was treated, right? Holding that title at the end of the day, who paid the consequence for when things didn't work out for the team? It's him. He's the boss. But I do think the GM role, it's what you want to make it out to be. BOH, who is still sitting in this organization doing who knows what, was supposed to be the elder voice to Heim. He was supposed to be this, guy who could point him in the right direction. He didn't have that kind of older guy to depend on and learn from and ask questions. So it was like, oh, BOH, you've been here for all these years. What guidance can you give me? Couldn't even guide him enough to, figure out the luxury tax in 2022. And then, when they got to September, he was just like, yeah, man, I don't know what happened. Like it's kind of crazy. Heim just ended up over it. And here we are. And then he got reassigned. He still has a job here, but I don't know. I think for Craig Breslow, it's like, I don't think he's looking for an older voice to kind of mentor him. I think Theo plays that role as a partner. To me, it seems more like he's chasing someone who thinks like him or is a rising star of some sort that, maybe to keep Taboni in this org before he gets picked up in another year or two either way. Seems like he's going to get a job in the next 3 or 4 years, no matter what.
It also seems like I know it is, and there are parts of the job I don't understand. I feel like they're making it out to be a much more difficult job than it actually is.
What do you mean?
Which one?
The signing and acquiring of major league talent for the Boston Red Sox is not a difficult job. The scouting and the minor leagues, unbelievably difficult, and I'd argue the more important job. Identifying good major leaguers and signing them seems like the easiest job in the world. Trading for them too.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made it seem impossible over the last 5 years.
Maybe not trading for them because then you'd have to be taking on the role of like evaluating the minor league talent and the amateur talent.
No, trading for other major leaguers. Yeah, but that's where having
how many trades involve just major leaguers? Not many.
No, but I do think the offseason, like I was thinking about the Pablo Lopez deal the other day and how that was a rare, that was just straight up 1-for-1, right? Was there a minor leaguer that went back to Minnesota as well?
Maybe.
But it was largely a rise for Pablo Lopez.
Yeah.
I do wonder if off seasons moving forward, like I think trade deadlines are where you're going to see teams looking for minor leaguers. I think in off seasons, you're going to see a lot of teams like, hey, yeah, we'll swap this major leaguer for your major leaguer because we're trying to build our major league roster right now.
Yeah, the days of like trading single A prospects that are flyers isn't
for sure.
Really,
I mean, the Derek Lowe story
popular.
we just heard, like stuff like that can't happen anymore. But to your point, Jared, I do think that's where, you need to have someone on your team. Like, I don't think you can be doing both. I don't think you can be assessing the major league roster and the minor leagues.
No.
I don't think anyone can be doing that. That's where you need to have, like Tyler's saying, they just took someone out of a role and moved him to a different role. You have to have someone with a keen knowledge of really out of 30 people on the roster, one with every single minor league organization, just watching them. That's it.
Yeah. It's hard because I remember you go back to like some of the Heim conversations. I want to say 2022 offseason, and when articles were coming out saying some people felt like Heim was talking to too many people, right? Like, where it was like, is he surveying the entire room here? And then he's so nervous about not talking to everyone that this team jumped you and signed this guy, and here you are, you too busy trying to have 15 different conversations. Like, where are you trying to just jump and get a deal done? I think those are real conversations in terms of what's going on. I'm still curious, like, I don't think we're ever going to see what Sportsology came down to, but, Eddie's still here as an assistant GM. Like, I think many of us thought he was going to get that GM role. Did we not? Like, oh, this makes a ton of sense. Raquel's still here, right? Like, so you have these different voices, and then you have Mike Grootman as well, who now is seemingly making this transition. I don't know. How different is it really going to be in one way? But Breslow's reshuffling, and I think it really goes back to even Heim the year before, where not only is it coaching, it's philosophy. They're bringing in a ton of drive line guys, which I love. Please give them all hitting and pitching because you see where it's paying off. But I think you're seeing Breslow, like, beyond the news of just Taylor Smith, right? Like Kyle Bodie, who we were all excited about a year ago talking about this. He's now the interim director of baseball sciences. You might be going after Dylan Lawson to be your next assistant hitting coach. That's a guy who's very analytically heavy, into a lot of, different baseball stuff. Kyle Wasserberger was hired as their lead biomechanist, to join the mix, another driveline guy. I think they're reshuffling the entire way they approach a lot of this stuff. And I think they said, or Brian Abraham said, going into 2023, they felt like from a player position side and everything, they even had to fix that stuff. And then, pitching followed up. So they felt like they had fell behind as an org over the last 10 years, especially the Dombrowski era, where they weren't, like the other orgs that were, kind of state of the art or doing these new ideas. And this has been kind of the catch up process.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about how Duquette deserves a lot of credit for 04. Not that Theo doesn't deserve a ton of credit, but that Duquette deserves a lot of it. I feel the same way about 18. Like, Dombrowski deserves the credit he gets. And everyone who came before him, especially Charrington, deserves as much, if not maybe more credit.
Yeah, those were the foundation pieces. And at the end of the day, like when the big four and whatever those guys are a main part of this, it's going to be the same conversation with Bloom.
Yeah, it's the deals you don't make. Cole Hamels deal. Matt Harvey
Mookie
deal.
Blake
Mookie Betts, Blake Swihart, and Xander Bogaerts for Cole Hamels.
Get it done.
The Harvey one was basically the same too, and like disasters, absolute disasters.
Yeah. Well,
thank you, Ben Charrington. Please trade us one of your pitchers.
I love Ben Charrington.
He's great. Can we get him on so I can negotiate that deal live?
I think so.
I feel like you
he
could.
Probably can't do that. It's probably super illegal for him. But
Are the Pirates really trying to follow rules with the Rowdy Tellez stuff? Like they're willing to kind of do some nasty things.
I'm fine with it.
What else? What else is on there?
That's everything. That's every topic we had.
Woo! The Red Sox offseason is off to a red hot start. And maybe I'm not being fair.
You shouldn't throw a party. It's just like, okay, cool. You hired someone who's young and seen in a positive light.
Tyler, you didn't ask me for my opinion.
I'm asking you.
You gave yours. You didn't ask me for mine.
You like were agreeing with Coley.
I didn't say anything.
That's what happened.
Yeah,
Continue.
I didn't say anything.
Tell me how you feel.
What I was saying.
I let you guys cook. My take on it. I agree. The one thing I agreed with Coley was usually if you hire someone from the Rays, it's reflective of, your thought process moving forward that we're trying to find the diamond in the rough, which like you need to do that. You can't just have a player making $30 million at every position. You do need to find talent that is on the cheap to be able to fill out a big league roster. Like it's not like even like the Dodgers have fucking, by the way,
they've got Tommy Edman carrying him to the World Series.
Dude, they have Kike Hernandez playing third base for them in the biggest games of their season. And they're looked at as a juggernaut. And I love Kike, but we saw him play shortstop for the Boston Red Sox. It was like the Monstars from Space Jam stole his talent and he didn't know how to play baseball anymore. And now he's playing third base, still the left side of the infield, making outrageous defensive plays in a good way and hitting moon bombs. So like, credit to the Dodgers. Like they've just got that secret sauce over there where they can just, I don't know what it is, but yeah, like there's obviously a place for a talent evaluator who can go out there and be like, I think that this guy is really good. No one else thinks he is, but I think that not only is he really good, but he has the potential to be even better. And we have the coaching staff here to unlock that. Like, yes, that is like, I'm not even, for me, the sigh and the eye roll isn't that he's a guy coming from the Rays, that his job title sounds super nerdy. It's more just like, he can have all these great ideas and it doesn't mean anything unless John Henry says, I think it's a good idea too. And
but even then, I'd say like, all right, at least you're getting someone who's supposedly good and knows what they're doing. If you're going to live in this like shitty world where you pretend to be a small market team or a mid-market team, like
I would argue they had that when they had Heim. I think that's where it keeps going back to like, what is the plan here? You know what I mean? That's where it's like, all right, we hired Breslow, who feels like Heim again, and then we hired young Heim from Tampa again. That's where it's just like, we had the guy, and like if we trade with the Cardinals this offseason, I'm going to be terrified. Genuinely terrified.
It's not revisionist history, though, to say that Heim wasn't the guy. You can look at the farm system and say, yes, awesome job. There were some good things, there were some bad things with Heim. I'm not gonna like get to a point where if Breslow completely flops this offseason, I'm not gonna sit here and say I wish Heim were here. I would say, who's the next guy? That's like, I'm not gonna go back. I want to go forwards. And but I don't even want to put that onto the universe. I don't even want to be sitting here thinking that there's a chance that Breslow is gonna completely shit his pants this winter. I don't feel I'm neutral right now. I'm right there in the middle. And like until you give me reason to believe in you or not believe in you, I'll be right here in the middle. He had to hit the ground running. Like we just talked about it. Like
it was a tough first offseason for sure. He definitely deserves.
When did they hire him? Like after Thanksgiving?
Oh,
like
no. End of October.
It was early November. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but it was like the offseason was like the Cardinals had already signed 9 bad pitchers.
Yeah, like Lance Lynn, Sonny Gray already had contracts.
Right. Like
but look at how that turned out. Like that blew
the
up in their
Cardinals
face.
were basically done with their offseason by the time Breslow was hired. Yeah.
Paved the way for Heim to get the job he has now, or he's going to get.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to do too much deep dive offseason shit yet because it's not that time yet.
If the Red Sox had hired Patrick McFarland, who holds the same role with the Phillies, would you feel any differently? What would you say? Would you be like, oh, that's proof the Red Sox are going to spend?
No.
You'd say no.
Patrick McFarland, how closely did he work with Dave Dombrowski?
It's the same position. He does exactly what the other guy does.
Yeah. Then I'd be like, yeah, I want some of that big dick Davey over here. That's what I want.
I think it's just a role in an organization. I think that's it. And you got a guy who's young and talented at it. And that's probably going to have a slight step.
The Rays did stink this year. I don't feel like that's getting talked about enough.
He's been there since 21. So what credit does he get?
So he got blown out in the playoffs.
This guy's a fraud.
Yeah. It sounds like the Rays downturn happened the second this guy showed up.
Oh my God. This guy is the source of all the problems.
They were cooking until he showed up.
Do you think firing Dave Dombrowski was a mistake?
No.
Not with the way they wanted to operate.
Look at what happened to us since he left, and look at what has happened with the Phillies since he showed up there.
They've made the World Series and lost.
I get it, but I mean, they've at least been a World Series contender pretty much every year that he's been there.
Schwarber was already there, right? Or not Schwarber, excuse me.
No.
Bryce was already there.
Oh, so was Zach Wheeler. So was Aaron Nola. So was JT Realmuto. All those guys were already there. Now he's worked out deals.
He re-signed Realmuto.
Yeah,
he won't re-sign Bryce.
He re-signed Aaron Nola.
But he re-signed Nola, which
Matt Klentak doesn't get enough credit for that.
Given the way the offseason went, you could argue he grossly overpaid for Nola, which I'm fine with. I'm always pro the players, but considering no one else could get that kind of deal, and he doesn't exactly have the same resume as Snell in terms of hardware, so he could have gotten Nola for cheaper. He just didn't.
I think many people would also tell you the Nick Castellanos deal has not been what many people hoped. Trey Turner, like regressing defensively already. How do you feel about him for that big deal?
He was terrible last year too.
What'd you say?
He was terrible the first 6 months he was there too.
Yeah. I think for Dombrowski, like the story at the end of the day is if the Red Sox were going to operate the way they were going to, and they did, then it never would have worked in any capacity having Dave Dombrowski here. He wouldn't have wanted the job because you would have been fucking him and he can't act the way he wants to act. The whole reason it works with the Phillies is because John Middleton says, spend whatever the hell you want and go nuts, like push your chips in. Here, John Henry says, we don't do that. That's not how we operate. So it was just not you couldn't work together anymore. Exactly. Like he took that away from him. So it's like, say what you want about Dombrowski and, I wish he was still here. You would have to hope you have a different owner of the Boston Red Sox.
I also I'm fine. He did the job he was brought in to do. I don't think Dombrowski would have traded Mookie.
No, probably not. Maybe
he would have let him.
But that was also the theory, was that he was asked to do it, and he said, "If you want me to do that, then I'm fucking out of here.
Sure.
Like you can have someone else do that."
Right. I mean, my biggest fear when they hired Heim was that he was brought in to trade Mookie, and I haven't seen much evidence to the contrary that wasn't the case.
Even though they've tried to put out and say that wasn't the case, which I think we all know.
Right.
Yeah.
But the Red Sox ownership did put that out. We didn't force him. We didn't tell him he had to do it.
Dombrowski just would have let him. He'd still be here because COVID still would have happened, and Mookie would have taken less. That's what would have happened.
I've actually been told that that is the case.
Right.
That the COVID games getting canceled definitely had an influence on his decision to take.
He told the Dodgers I wasn't signing an extension in spring training. He was like, guys, I'm going to free agency, and then the whole world shut down and he didn't know what was going to happen.
I think, and they still gave him a fair market deal too.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't offer him like $250. That's what the Red Sox would have done. They would have lowered their $300 to $250, and then Mookie would have been like, I actually might just retire. I'm not doing any of this shit. But I think it's interesting. The Dodgers traded for Mookie knowing well and good, like, yeah, we don't know that a virus is going to shut down the world. We're willing to trade for you and play it out. And the Yankees just did that with Soto. And that kind of lack of cowardice gets rewarded. The cowardice trading away those guys does not get rewarded.
Well, I didn't want to talk about Mookie, but
we were talking GM, so it was going to come up.
Back to Taylor Smith.
Isn't it kind of crazy that there's a World Series being played and it's Mookie versus Verdugo?
I mean, there's like 12 Red Sox on the Dodgers.
I'm more focused on Ryan Brazier.
Brazier versus Verdugo. The showdown we've all been waiting for.
Like, Verdugo's so bad at baseball, I don't acknowledge him.
Oh, he'll have a big hit.
Oh, sure. He's had a couple already this postseason.
He has.
But overall, as a baseball player, he's going to be lucky to get a 1-year deal.
Wow.
We say that. Aaron Judge is going to hand him a 3-year deal to stay with the Yankees.
Just like, so, like, dude, you posted a 647 OPS. I'm sorry. Get the fuck out of here. You couldn't get up for it in New York in a free agent year?
I mean, he's certainly trying.
Sure. Try harder.
I have no doubt that he's trying.
There's no way you're this bad at baseball now. Refuse to believe it.
Way. Baseball's hard, man. It's fucking.
What is regress? He's 28 years old.
Doesn't matter. Not everyone plays until they're 37. Like some guys, I was looking at Bellhorn's numbers when we were talking about him during the interview, and it was like he had 860, Jared? I know you have that number tattooed on you somewhere. He had like an 860 OPS in 04. He never even came close after that.
And set the Red Sox single season record for strikeouts in that same season.
He did. He led the majors with strikeouts that year.
I believe that record is still standing to this day.
817 OPS in 04.
Thought you were going to say that's how many times he struck out.
No, 177, which for the time was outrageous. He had an 886 in 02.
Dude struck out 817 times in 04. That's crazy.
He was 29 when he did that, and then he was 681 the next year, 629, 349. He's out of the league by 32. Like, not everyone, just because you are good when you're 26, keeps playing for a decade. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, I bet you part of that was Mark Bellhorn was like, all right, dude, fuck this. I don't even
Bellhorn for sure. Yeah,
he could have kept playing. And Bellhorn was also one of those dudes where, he was an OBP guy kind of before everyone cared about OBP. Like some teams definitely cared, but I mean, we were 2 years removed from Moneyball. Like not everyone was on the OBP train.
373 OBP in 04.
Right. So it's like, oh, he hit 264 and he led the league in strikeouts. He stinks, but it's like, yeah, well, he got on base, fuck it, at a 400 clip.
And I'll also say for Verdugo, like I'm not giving him any room here for a guy who does not put the work and the effort in. Like, I'm not going to feel bad for you if your skills are starting to regress at 28 because of that.
Wow.
I don't know that we can say that with full confidence that he's not working hard.
We don't know that now. We knew that here, maybe.
Yeah, here for sure we knew that. I'm saying we have no idea. What does last year look like?
Yeah, we don't.
Maybe things changed in New York. Definitely whatever he's doing, I'd stop doing it and try something else.
Start off playing baseball good. Dum like, what are you thinking?
All right. We'll be back next week, which will be, I believe, is next week the last? No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Next week is the last. It could potentially be the last week. It is. It's the last week of one episode a week, and then the week after would be the off season, so we would be two timing.
Sure. The
week after. So yeah, one more week of one episode of Section 10, and then we go back to 2. Nice little break. And back to that 2-episode grind. We'll do some guests. We'll do some
panel.
DMs. We'll do some we'll do an 07. You know what? Let's do an 07 nostalgia episode just for
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all watch the World Series film and we'll come back and talk about it.
Maybe let's do a live stream of us watching the 2007 World Series film.
I'd cry. I was the only person today in the entire world who cared to tweet out it was the anniversary of Game 7 of the ALCS, them moving on. No one else gave a damn.
It's so wild, like how difficult that series was, and but it only feels difficult in hindsight. At no point, and maybe Jared, I'm alone on this, but no point did I think we were going to lose to Cleveland.
When we were down 3-1, I was like, "Oh, we're cooked."
I don't recall being worried.
I was worried. I mean, when they went down 3-1, I was like, I can't believe we're going to fucking lose to this team. Like, after the season we just had, I mean, the Red Sox were wire to wire, just the best team. Like,
I know. I think that's why I wasn't worried. They were so much better than everyone.
Yeah, but that was part of it was, did they underestimate their opponent? And when they went down 3-1, I believe, did they get their asses kicked in Game 4? That was the one.
7-3.
Yeah, and I want to say the 3 runs were the back-to-back home runs, and I was fucking pissed because like Manny was pimping the home run in the division series. He put his hands up because they went back to back, and it's like, all right, dude, we're down fucking 4 still. So it just kind of felt like, and I want to also say, after that Game 4 loss that Manny hit the back-to-back home runs and was pimping it even though they were down 4 at the time, he had a quote being like, "It's just baseball, man."
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they went up to him at his locker and they were like, "You guys are down 3-1. He was like, "I don't care." like he's not saying I don't care as in like, yeah, we're going to be able to come back. He was like, "I don't care if we lose. It is what it is."
It was that in in 04, you had Pedro and Curt, who was a couple years younger. At this time, it was like Curt, who was at the very end. It was Dice K, who was not super impressive that first season in America. So it was like Josh Beckett, was going to go
over the ace. Like what?
Oh no, you had Josh Beckett, right? But you're down 3-1. It's like, oh fuck, we gotta win 3 in a row here.
And he was the first one. I think that was part of why I wasn't worried. He was I didn't think he was going to go 8, basically shutout, but he did. He completely outdueled CC Sabathia, which is one of the all-time. That was a great game.
Here it is. On a workout day, Manny Ramirez gave Boston fans a real reason to get worked up. With the Red Sox just one loss from elimination, the star slugger was asked about Game 5 of the AL Championship Series against Cleveland. Why should we panic? He said Wednesday in a rare Clubhouse interview. We've got a great team. And then this. If it doesn't happen, so who cares? There's always next year. It's not like it's the end of the world. That's what he said.
Damn.
Listen, like that, this is exactly, I can remember exactly why. I was like, all right, we have Beckett Game 5 and Curt Schilling, who, yeah, he was older, but all we knew about Curt Schilling at that point in time was he broke the curse in 04. Why would I think
it was also the end.
Cleveland.
You mean what, one more start after that?
Probably. I mean, yeah.
And then 08 his shoulder
in
went.
this game. Went 7 and gave up 2. And this game was over. And like Fausto Carmona started this game. He doesn't even have that name anymore.
But no, Foster Carmona at that time?
Sure. He was also 0-1 with a 7.20 ERA at that point in the playoffs.
He was ridiculous that season. Am I wrong?
During the regular season, yeah. Him and Cisse were a terrifying duo at the top. They were 19-8. He was also
Hernandez.
4 years older than he claimed to be.
Yeah, 306. The FIP was 394, though. Fourth in Cy Young voting.
Then he got his dick kicked in by Casey Blake and the boys. Or, excuse me, Casey
JD
Blake.
Drew.
I can't believe, like they came back from 3-1 in that series, and just, no one talks about the comeback.
No one gives a fuck about them.
It wasn't 3-0. It just wasn't as difficult. It
wasn't
the
as
Yankees.
difficult, but it was improbable.
Dude, it's like
how many
7-1, 12-2, 11-2. All the wins of the Red Sox were blowouts. They were like a plus 40 in a 7-game series, which they lost 3 games.
Yeah.
No, but it's like a guy who gets shot 30 times and lives. It's incredible. The guy who got shot 15 times, that was pretty cool. Like, he deserves some credit. Like, you survived 15 bullets to the back.
Well.
Rafael Betancourt came in Game 7 and just shit all over the floor. It was terrible.
All right, we'll do a Relive 07 pod. This that's my promise to you, T-Dog. We'll do a Relive 07 episode just for you.
That would mean the world to me.
Yeah, we'll do it. Actually, you know what? I have the DVD set of every game.
Really?
Mm-hmm. They used to do that. They used to put out the World Series film, but then they would also put out DVD sets that had every game of the playoff run.
I miss that so much.
Yeah, I have 04 and 07.
I watched
and 13, I believe.
I watched through the ALCS during COVID. I remember that for 07 because I was just like depressed and I needed a reason to live, and that was kind of my last resort. It saved me.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a live rewatch of Game 7 of the ALCS.
That's what the people need.
Yeah. All right. Coley, any final thoughts?
Subscribe, rate, review Roland Jake's new podcast that he's gracious enough to let me talk on.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't yap as much as you would expect. There's still yapping. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to turn it on and think there's no yapping, but he lets it breathe for the boys.
T-Dog, final thoughts?
Shout out Taylor Smith. If you need a place to stay coming to Boston, come hang out with me.
Nowhere near Boston.
Mm-mm. And he doesn't like you either.
Me and Taylor, we go way back. Same age.
He doesn't like you.
We would have went to high school together.
Is he listening to like Yeet and stuff? I don't need that in my front office.
That new Ian project. If you haven't listened to it, man. Oh my God. Jake, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, it's fire.
Okay, thank you. That's all I asked. The Yeet project's fire too. I'm not trying to hate.
Disgusting.
Is it My Call? Is that the Ian track? Yeah, that shit's ridiculous. It sounds like 808's like RoboCop. Like, oh my God. Incredible. I'm done.
What you're talking about. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you next week. Go Dodgers.
Buenas noches, amigos.